prepared for the careers that they need in cybersecurity. Many of them are already engaged, if you will, as malware experts or junior malware experts, security operators, analysts. Some focus more on adversarial emulations and skills, while others focusing more on defense and vulnerabilities, and just a wide variety of areas. So with that said, today is really our opening ceremony for season 3. And that is really twofold. It is both the celebration of cyber games, where we invite everybody of all age groups and all skill levels to take part and experience what a cyber game is. And that is the beginner's game room that you'll hear about later today. Then we have, in the next couple of days, we'll actually be opening a separate competition, which is more competitive. That is where we are literally seeking out the best and the brightest ages up to 25 in cybersecurity. And keep in mind, we're looking for depth as well as breadth. So we don't have to be a king of skills across everything. You could be a forensics expert and just a newbie at web security, but we still want to hear from you. So please take the time, participate in the games, have fun, be competitive, show your skills. And if you qualify and you're interested in considering being part of the team, sign up and let us know. We will be taking a look at those applications and deciding who moves forward into our invitational. The next step in the process towards becoming part of the team is the combine. And so that is something that you want to take a look at over the summer. And of course, you'll hear a lot more about this today, I'm sure. So moving forward, we've got a lot of exciting things to talk about. Let me first start off by introducing Brad, Director of Cyber Sports for Cat's Eye and lead for the US Cyber Games. Brad, welcome.
Thanks, Jess. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I just wanted to pop in and say hi. You'll see a lot of me this afternoon. Looking forward to everything we have lined up for you. Thanks for being here.
Excellent, excellent. Brad, if you can stay on for one more second, I'd just love to know, what should we expect today? What are our folks going to be hearing about? Why should they stay tuned, if you will?
Today's a stacked lineup. We put this together based off of feedback over the last couple of seasons from our fans, from our athletes. So we're going to kick things off here very shortly with an opening keynote from one of our wonderful partners at NICE. Marion Merritt will be talking a lot about cybersecurity competitions and teamwork and how that all looks. Then we'll get into a fast and furious agenda that has conversations with a ghost, a former FBI counterterrorism, counterintelligence agent that's is pretty well known for some work that he's done for the US intelligence community. We'll have a talk on accelerating incident response practices through generative AI. We'll have a view from inside a NOC. Two gentlemen that have been responsible for setting up and managing some of the biggest NOCs in the world. We'll be talking about some insider tools and tricks and various technologies they use and why. And we have a panel called Movers and Shakers. 3 young women making waves in cybersecurity, talking about all the cool things that they're doing, their journeys into the field. They all have work in nonprofits that they've started, or content creators on YouTube, et cetera. And then we'll wrap things up today with a closing keynote from Department of Homeland Security's CISA, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. So lots to buckle in for. Thanks for being here. And we'll look forward to hearing which one's your favorite.
Excellent. Thank you, Brad. Good luck today. With that, I do want to do a call out to our sponsors for season 3. Thank you for your support. If you are in the Brella environment and part of today's summit, please do go around, check out the various different sponsorship virtual booths, engage with them, thank them for their support. This would not be possible without them. If you are looking to do part of the games, I got to put another plug in. Games are fun and they're different, and don't underestimate yourself. If you're not into games and you're just kind of trying it out, do so. If you are 14 years of age and you're out there and you're just trying to figure this out and you're not qualified for the team, that's okay. Play anyways. If you're 45 years old and you're too old to be part of the team, play anyways. You can still win prizes, you can still learn lots, and you can have some fun. If you want to continue with these games outside of the US Cyber Games, I would invite you to check out our playcyber.com website that talks about the league that we have that is open up to all age groups as well. That is a nice and free way right now to expose yourself to various different cyber games and continue to hone those skills until you are ready to be part of the cyber team. So with that, let me say that this program would not be possible without our support, without the support of the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, NICE, at NIST. We are so grateful for the ongoing support from the very beginning to the relationship that we have that will continue on for at least 3-4 more years, and the commitment that they continue to support us in trying to align these skills that are being leveraged in games in a very applied way to the workforce framework, a cybersecurity workforce framework that is recognized internationally as a standard that helps our communities understand what does it take to be in a cybersecurity career. The games provide that hands-on immersive experience, and they would not be as valuable if we did not align to such a framework. So I really do want to say thank you and appreciate all the help that we've received and the championship from NICE. Now, with that said, I do have the honor of introducing today's keynote, the fabulous Marian Merritt, Deputy Director for NICE, the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, and NIST. Marian, if you would join us today, that would be wonderful. Hello.
Here I am.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm going to hand over the mic to hear what you have to say. Thank you for joining us today. And again, thank you for your support.
I'm just thrilled to be here. Thank you so much, Jessica and Brad and Sarah and the rest of the team. This is a very exciting day, and I'm absolutely thrilled to get to be a part of it. So as you heard, I'm Marian Merritt, and I'm the Deputy Director for NICE at NIST, where our focus is on advancing cybersecurity education and workforce for the nation. And we at NICE are very supportive of efforts to introduce young people to cybersecurity careers, and in particular, those programs that make it fun and easy to acquire in-demand skills for a variety of cybersecurity roles. So the work that Cat's Eye and the US Cyber Games are doing to bring exciting esports style competitions to the world of cybersecurity, you know, it's a powerful reframing of what it means to get into cybersecurity careers. And we at NICE are very proud to help sponsor these games. So let's get into why this matters so much. I have 4 themes that I want to share. The first, cybersecurity work is important, which I think you know. Second, cybersecurity professionals are in demand and the careers are highly varied. Third, developing your skills as a team player is crucial to your future career in cybersecurity. And fourth, career preparation is elevated by competitions like the US Cyber Games, and Capture the Flags or CTFs can contribute to help you prepare for your career alongside higher education and other forms of training. So first, cybersecurity work is important. You know that, and it's fascinating work. That's why you're here with us today. So why is cybersecurity of crucial importance to the nation's economy? I mean, after all, my office, NICE, sits within the US Department of Commerce. Cybersecurity, to be a little bit simplistic, is the art and science of protecting digital assets. And that's your personal data, or your company's, or your nation's data. In fact, if cybercrime's global costs were a country, it would be ranked 3rd, right after the US and China. We've all seen devastating and rapid growth of international and nation-state actors who are constantly attacking our digital frontiers. And that's why we need really everyone to consider whether a role in the field of cybersecurity is right for them. Consider your own experiences with cybercrime, or maybe your family members. Have you ever been notified of an account involved in a data breach? Have you or a friend had your social media accounts hacked? Have you ever read or heard about hospitals that can't perform surgery or make appointments because ransomware took over their systems? Have you had your identity stolen? I mean, when we hear that cybercrime is growing 15% year over year and hitting $10 trillion, it can seem huge and abstract. But as we've just seen, cybercrime is actually very personal, and it's an affront to our very way of life. a way of life that is increasingly digital and online. So the work is in demand and highly varied. We need all hands on deck for this work, and everyone is welcome, and cybersecurity careers differ so much from one to the other. First, how in demand? We at NICE sponsor a website that you can visit called cyberseek.org. There you can see exactly what open jobs exist in the United States right now and where. You can see job titles, qualifications that actual employers are looking for. We at NICE have also developed, as you heard, a workforce framework that helps employers agree on common tasks in cybersecurity work across 52 work roles. And mind you, that number keeps growing. And the framework is a shared lexicon or language that we can all use to describe cybersecurity tasks and the skills needed to perform them. The framework is also valuable to job seekers because you can use this shared language on your resume or your LinkedIn to better explain the skills you possess and the tasks you already have experience with. And educators will also use the framework because they know that when we bring together learners and employers and we share the same language to describe the coursework that you can take at a university or a community college, that we just get farther along in matching employees and employers. Now, many people in cybersecurity careers will actually get their start in adjacent or what we call feeder roles like software development or network management or even IT help desk. But no single career path is necessarily the only path. You could start in healthcare, for example. You could start as a nurse and then reskill for a cybersecurity position right in your hospital, but you'd be leveraging your clinical knowledge and your sector experience. We all know librarians, coffee baristas, marketing professionals, business analysts, or lawyers, all of whom were able to identify which of their current skills were transferable, and then were able to repurpose with additional training to enter cybersecurity roles. So just as the background and preparation of cybersecurity professionals can and should vary, so do the careers they will go into. And if you look at the CyberSeek website or you look at the NICE framework, you'll start to understand why there's such high demand for careers like analysts or secure software developers, cryptographers, investigators, or forensics professionals. Cybersecurity work is not just one type of work. And that's why we need more people to recognize that cybersecurity work roles are varied and there are opportunities for everyone. Because we need to increase the number of the people in the field, but we also need to attract more diverse talent because it takes all the players to make the teamwork work. And when we talk about teamwork, that's really everything in cybersecurity, just as it is in life and in the workplace. So let's talk about comfort zones. It is possible that just in registering to compete in the US Cyber Games, you are about to step way outside your comfort zone. I mean, you may be feeling nervous and unsure, but you're probably very excited and all at the same time. So one of my favorite television shows, Ted Lasso, had a great quote. The coach, Ted Lasso himself, said, "Taking on a challenge is a lot like riding a horse, isn't it? If you're comfortable while you're doing it, you're probably doing it wrong." So don't worry if you're new to cybersecurity competitions or you feel nervous. You will have your team members to help you, and you already have many skills that you will find are useful for these CTFs. If you are undecided, I want you to just decide to try. So let me tell you about my first CTF. I was at a Women in Cybersecurity conference, and I thought, I'll just step in the room and observe. But one of the teams was short a needed participant, and they grabbed me. Now, I thought, what can I possibly contribute to this? I'm a policy and marketing person. I mean, let me tell you, not 30 minutes later, I was actively doing OSINT searches for clues on social media. And just as an aside, I think some of my years stalking my children's social media and online accounts may have been paying off. But I discovered that I could contribute to the effort. And then when we got to challenges where I really didn't know where to start, I could help my teammates by taking notes and summarizing where we were and what we knew. I could use my existing skill sets in ways I would never have imagined. And by the way, I really had the most amazing time. So teamwork, it's crucial to success in life. But why is it so important? Well, when we recognize the strengths in others and leverage them to support our own strengths, we as a team can achieve so much more than on our own. And together, you and the team can share responsibility for achieving goals. Now, we know teamwork's only effective when each team player performs to their utmost. As a parent, nothing puts fear in my heart more than when I used to have my kids come home and say these 4 words: it's a group project. I mean, maybe you can relate, because there's really only 2 possibilities. Either my child is the one who's going to slack off and fail to contribute, and then we'd get a dreaded call from the teacher, or my child would be the one who did all the work and stay up until all hours and really just burn out. When parents hear group project, we've learned, be nervous. So how do we hit the right balance as team members? Patrick Lencioni writes about the virtues of the ideal team player, and you can find his TED Talks on YouTube, and he has books as well, including The Ideal Team Player and the 5 Dysfunctions of the Team. His first virtue is humility. You need to be humble. You don't assume that you always know the right way forward, but you also shouldn't be afraid to ask the others to weigh in. When you have a team member who doesn't speak up, it might not be humility. They might be a lack of confidence. So be wary of arrogance and impatience when you evaluate teammates. Second virtue, hungry. You need to have a desire to get things done and succeed. As a team, start by setting goals to work hard. Set high standards. Don't settle for the minimum effort for yourself. And don't assume others will pick up your slack. And the third virtue is smart. Develop skills at interacting with others, at communication, at asking your team members for information and then sharing it with the others. This is learnable. To be the ideal team player, you're going to need all 3. You're going to need to be humble, hungry, and smart. So apply this knowledge to yourself, with your family, or any group project you get on at school. Rank where you think you are in each element, where your strongest value is, and then second and third. You can ask family members, coaches, and mentors for input here, and aim to get some balance in your role as a team member, just as you do in other spheres of life. I mean, there's more that I can say about teamwork. In the US government, we absolutely benefit when we team up. One area I work on at NICE is on cybersecurity apprenticeships. And these are programs that help people gain on-the-job training and mentoring with a committed employer that helps to identify the exact skills and tasks for their workforce. Last year, I worked with the US Department of Labor colleagues on a sprint, a focused effort to promote these apprenticeships. And I love these kind of team efforts that create win-wins for our agencies. But more importantly, it was a huge win for the nation's security workforce. So how important is teamwork in cybersecurity? I mean, if I look on media, it's always one person working independently. They're typing on their keyboard, they're sitting in a dark room, and there's blue text on monitors all around them. So is that reality? I mean, let me read you a quote from a recent Harvard Business Review article by a man named Dustin Updike at Carnegie Mellon. And he says, just as elite sports teams depend on trust among players to perform at their best, cybersecurity relies on trust in computers, people, and organizations. We trust our computers to perform reliably and consistently, just as we trust our teammates to excel in their organizational roles. And as with sports, building trust within a cybersecurity team is essential for success. So Mr. Updike, he's talking about the need for organizations to continually train and test cybersecurity teams so that when, and not if, they are attacked, they will be ready to respond effectively. And better yet, with proper training and teams that practice, they can anticipate and block attacks or minimize their impact. So as you consider what sort of teammate you're going to be for the US Cyber Games, here's another thought to consider. The team that you participate on, the coaches, the mentors, even people from other countries that you might compete against, these people could someday be on your team at work. With the incredible scale and reach of the US Cyber Games, participating in this only the 3rd season, you will actively be building skills and your professional network at the same time. You will also discover that you have strengths and you have weaknesses in a variety of skill areas, and that may help you focus your interests in your ongoing education and training opportunities. So whether you're currently at or planning to attend a university for a cybersecurity or related STEM degree program, or you're considering a future in the US military, or you're planning to complete a hands-on cybersecurity training program or apprenticeship, participating in the US Cyber Open could lead you in so many new directions. So as I wrap up, Let me just say that participating in these games will be life-changing. And even if you don't make it past the CTF to the international competition, you are certainly going to gain experience and exposure to some crucial concepts in cybersecurity. You may discover an area of the work that you love, and that knowledge can help you formalize your career objectives. Maybe you're a reverse engineering savant, and you won't know until you give it a try. So I want to give big thanks to Jessica, Brad, the whole Cat's Eye team, all the athletes from seasons 1 and 2, the sponsors, the coaches and mentors, and all the many hardworking volunteers. A big congratulations to everyone. And I want to wish you all a winning season. Thank you so much.
Marion, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for helping us kick off our season 3 in such a big way. We're, as Jess mentioned, very grateful for your support at NICE. And I'm sure all of our audience today walked away with a couple of great lessons. I know I, for one, loved the TED analogy. It's always a good time. Very cool. And you sharing your story about your first CTF was absolutely phenomenal. So Marion, thank you very much. And with that, we'll let you go, get on with the rest of your day. Hopefully you'll stick around a little bit for some of our future talks. And speaking of, we are welcoming in 2 of our next guests for our session, Q&A with a ghost. So as I mentioned, we have 2 gentlemen, Rick McElroy at InfoSec Rick. He is a principal security strategist at VMware Carbon Black, and Eric O'Neill, a former FBI counterterrorism and counterintelligence operative. And they're here to discuss a day in the life and what their journey into cyber was like for them. So it looks like we've got Rick already on. Welcome, Rick. Thanks for being here. And Eric, there you are. Gentlemen, thank you. I will hand it over to you whenever you're ready. Rick and Eric, take it away, guys.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited. So to start, I just want to start by saying I wish something like this existed when I started in information security 25 years ago. It really didn't. Formalized CTFs, all of those things are great things that the industry has built, right? With the purpose of trying to get this next generation of defenders into the critical role of cybersecurity. And with that, I'm Rick McElroy, Principal Cybersecurity Strategist for VMware Carbon Black, and it is my pleasure to get to speak with one of my good friends, Eric O'Neill. Eric is best known for his role in capturing the most notorious spy in US history, Robert Hanssen. Eric is a cybersecurity keynote speaker, former FBI counterterrorism and counterintelligence operative. He's a technology futurist and, oh, by the way, a practicing attorney. And one other note, he's also an author. He is the best-selling author of Gray Day and the inspiration for the movie Breach, in which he was portrayed by the actor Ryan Phillippe. Eric is the founder of the Georgetown Group, a premier investigative and security services firm and a national security strategist. And again, one of my good peers over at VMware Carbon Black, where we lead the next-gen endpoint security space. In addition to cybersecurity, he also addresses the new SEC cybersecurity reporting requirements, the threat to US security posed by terrorism, cyber threats to critical infrastructure, foreign intelligence, and the national conscience in a monitored society. Look, I've got so many things I could say about Eric and all of the things that he's done, but I think he's truly a fascinating person, and I'm glad that we get to spend some time today. So Eric, thanks for joining us. I think you might be on mute, Eric.
There we go. That should be better.
Perfect.
Every time I change over. Hey, Rick, it is great to be in any kind of chat with you. As Rick said, everyone, he and I are very long-lasting colleagues. We have been doing the hunting cyber threat war for quite some time together. And hey, when I have questions about the specifics in cybersecurity, when you're going to get down in the weeds and actually go hunt these threats, it's Rick that I turn to. I came from a very interesting discipline, as he said, the FBI, and my background was as an undercover operative to hunt spies and therapists and terrorists. So when I think of cybersecurity, I am applying the science of counterintelligence, and that is the science of hunting spies, which is really, if you ask me, my theories have proven true when you get down to it, what you're doing. Because the way that cyber criminals and cyber spies, obviously in particular, are attacking us is by fooling us, tricking us. They're using traditional spy tradecraft in a modern era. And so I bring that old school look at catching spies into a modern world of catching cyber threat actors.
Awesome. Well, with that, I've got some questions. First, how does one actually get started in a career in counterintelligence, and what makes what's a good background for someone who does decide to kind of pursue this career?
I get asked that question a lot. And in fact, so much that I spent an entire chapter of Gray Day just on how I got into the FBI and why. Particularly from students, they want to know, is an FBI career, CIA career, NSA career, or one of these agencies, or even military intelligence that you came from, Rick, are these sort of careers something that would be beneficial for me? I'm a big proponent for taking the time, doing your service, and learning skills you're not going to get anywhere else in the world, and then taking those and using that body of knowledge and deploying it in the civilian world, where you can make the money that you want to make, but you can also do that very good work to protect organizations as opposed to agencies, and sometimes organizations to protect agencies. So how did I get in the FBI? I applied. I graduated from Auburn University with a degree in psychology and political science. I was supposed to graduate with a degree in aerospace engineering, but that's a story for another time. And found, what am I going to do with a liberal arts degree? Well, you have a couple options. You can go back to school, which is what most people do, to get a degree that actually is employable. You can go do what I actually did for a year, was become a consultant, or you can apply to something else. And so I was a consultant for a year. I thought about going to law school. I decided I wanted some time to do something that would give me skills I couldn't find anywhere else. And that ended up being the FBI. I went undercover in the FBI as an FBI ghost. I learned at the FBI Academy the basics of counterintelligence, which is the science of countering the threats from other countries, foreign threat actors. Particular in my discipline was working here in the United States on US soil to stop. It ended up being a lot of Russians and Chinese from stealing our information. And it was one of the most rewarding career parts of my entire career, and something that I obviously am still talking about and remember fondly.
And personally, I think it's one of the coolest titles you can have for a job, being a ghost. It's just, I think everybody gets it, right? But, what was it actually like working as a ghost, right? Like, is there, I'm assuming, right, there's costuming, right? but like, kind of what are the components that go into, being a ghost for the FBI?
So the actual title is investigative specialist, which sounds pretty boring. So of course we were known as the ghosts, or the Gs, if you wanted to be real lazy. Investigative specialists, or ghosts, are highly undercover operatives who work throughout the United States primarily, although we would go on foreign soil at different times, to protect the United States against terrorists and spies in particular. Very few criminal activity. Our training and discipline was the ability to investigate and follow somebody who was trained to spot surveillance. So you got to be really good in order to do that. You know a lot of tips and tricks. So as an FBI ghost, I could follow you from the moment you woke up in the morning until the second you went to bed at night, and I could even listen to you sleep. We would use all sorts of technology as part of what we did. Of course, the best way to follow someone is that human intelligence, the ability to know when you're being followed, to know how to follow someone without being seen, and to know when that person is going to turn around and look back so you're not there when they do it. So, of course, I used a whole kit of disguises. Through the course of one day, I might be behind you for 10 hours, or some mostly in front of you, on you, watching you, have the eye on you is the spy word, for 10 hours over the course of a day. And you might have seen me 3 or 4 times, but each time I changed my look. That way you don't identify me multiple times over the course of a day, and now you've spotted possible surveillance. So I use this disguise kit, easy stuff. A ball, just a baseball hat and some glasses like Rick's wearing right now will completely change your face. change your appearance. And if someone's looking quickly, they're not going to spot you. I also had a little goatee I could spirit gum, of course, different disguises. Back when I was operating, which was right before 9/11 until 9/11, you could pretty much walk into any building. And so I had a bike messenger outfit I'd throw on if I had to follow someone into a corporate building. I found that I could get farther and be more invisible than if I put on a suit and tried to walk in. Had a college student kit because I was working in DC, and you can't throw a rock without hitting some sort of school in the nation's capital, and all sorts of things. I also used a lot of technology. My number one tool, my number one asset was my camera with a whole kit of different kinds of telephoto and low light lenses. Obviously at night, we couldn't use a flash, so the guy turns around and sees you. And even more interesting things like low vision glasses and thermal imagers, so I could follow someone in a park and see where they had put their hand without, getting too close. But I think the number one thing that I used, the number one tool I had, was my mind. You have to, in order to investigate someone, in order to put together the clues to find out whether this person is a spy, what they're going to do next, to be there in front of them, you have to be very, very good at critical thinking. And that is the number one skill that anyone who wants to work undercover in any capacity has to have.
Wow. And you've been doing this a long time, right? So you mentioned pre 9/11. Clearly lots of things in the security world have changed since then. How has catching spies changed in the same time frame?
Right. Well, my book, Gray Day, the byline is there are no hackers, there are only spies. And it's a theory I came up with years ago, maybe 10 years ago, and it's proven true, with the idea that old traditional espionage has really fallen by the wayside. Now, it still happens now and again. And by old traditional espionage, I mean a foreign intelligence officer, a spy, comes to the US undercover, which means they've got a job typically in a diplomacy somewhere. So they've got a job in the consulate or the diplomat's office in Washington, D.C., spy capital of the world. That's where I operated. And they're the third, assistant to agriculture in the embassy. That's what they've told the State Department they're coming over to do. Really, they're a spy. Now, we either figure out they're a spy by just randomly following them and they go do something that shows that they're operating, or the CIA figures it out overseas and tells us. And then the big game is we don't want them to know that we know that they're a spy. So they think that they're clean, and really we're following them to see if they're going to take us to the American that has sold out. That's a mole, like the Robert Hansen or Aldrich Ameses of the world. And in the old days, what they had to do was go find an American. And there were many ways they would do it. They would bribe people. They would blackmail people. They would appeal to people's ideology. There's the three main ways that you can recruit a spy. And once they recruited the American, then that person would have to go into their government agency or their business and steal information. In the old days, it was that archaic way that we used to share things. Remember? It was called paper. And It was in these things called files that were actually in these physical things called file cabinets. And you had to go in and steal the physical paper and shove it down your pants and get out of the building, and then hand it to the intelligence officer, who would get it to the embassy. And once it was in the embassy, we were done, because it would be put in a diplomatic pouch and then we couldn't touch it, even though we could watch that diplomatic pouch go all the way to Moscow and we could do nothing, right? That's the old way. It was labor intensive. It took forever. And there were so many error points for intelligence officers where someone like me conducting an investigation could intercept and discover their spy and ruin the entire operation. Today, they don't even leave their country. Majority of intelligence work right now, of espionage, is done through computer systems, because that's where the data is. And because we are connected to the cloud. In fact, we're more connected today at this moment than we've ever been in history, because the pandemic pushed us there. I mean, most people don't even show up at an office anymore. That information is all available. It's accessible in some way, shape, or form. Now, Rick and I do a lot of work with VMware and Carbon Black to prevent that information from being stolen, to identify the attacker before they can do the damage. But the fact of the matter is that there is an end. So why does a spy have to recruit when they can steal? So the majority of what espionage is doing today is trying to recruit a person without them knowing they're recruited. I call them virtual trusted insiders. The number one way is still a spear phishing email, because once they steal your credentials, they become you within your environment and you don't even know it. You've just been recruited as a spy and you don't even get paid. And that's what they're doing. So the majority of espionage is now happening through cyber attacks. So if anyone is working in cybersecurity, congratulations, you are a spy hunter.
Yeah, and specifically if you're in DFIR, you're catching them all the time as part of some of our great partners that are out there traveling the world, looking at these breaches, right? Being able to figure out the root cause, how did it happen? And Eric's not wrong. A lot of the times you trace it back and it's some insider who got their credentials popped and now they're moving around.
Precisely.
Hey, Eric,
and just to carry that one step further, Rick, the criminals are doing the exact same thing. So the science of hunting a spy through cyberspace is being deployed more and more exactly the same to hunt a criminal, because the criminals are watching what the spies are doing, who are the best in the breed, and they're just modeling the same attacks. Whether they're zero-day attacks that criminals are now creating novel, just like the spies do, or these very clever spear phishing attacks. The only real difference between criminals and spies is spies want to get into your data, lurk there as long as they can, steal information without you knowing. Criminals want to get in there, do the exact same thing, steal as much information they can, and then lock everything down with ransomware to have sort of a double-pronged attack. We're going to lock it down with ransomware. You pay a ransom, and even if you don't want to pay for the decryption key, well, you're going to pay for all your data we just stole.
Yeah, massive problem for companies. And in fact, I think our latest couple of posts really kind of talk about the evolution of ransomware, kind of moving away from actually ransoming to just going to stealing files, blackmail, all of that good stuff.
You could call it kidnapping.
Yeah. Hey, Eric, I'm going to take a little bit of a left-hand turn because I think it's fascinating. And I don't get to talk to too many people that have had movies made about something. Right. So the first question, and this is a two-part question. First question, what was it like having a movie made about an operation you were on? And then specifically, you're the main character in the movie. And secondarily, do people confuse you with Ryan Felipe? Like, does that happen?
Well, having a movie made about me changed my life. I was not a public speaker before Breach came out in 2007. Came out February 2007. And it thrust me into the limelight in a way that I absolutely wasn't prepared for. I mean, think about it this way. I was one of the most highly trained, most undercover operators in the United States. I didn't even have a name in the FBI. I was only known by a code name. That's how secret we were at the time. Since then, the investigative specialists, the ghosts, have been made more public. It was accidental many years before I wrote Gray Day, and Gray Day actually goes into what it's like to be a ghost, and the FBI gave me permission. So I went from being one of the most highly undercover people in the world to someone whose entire life was being scrutinized by not only Hollywood, but the entire press, who were suddenly looking at this case and the fact that there was a blockbuster movie made about the case, and saw this is the guy who caught the most damaging spy in U.S. history. That was earth-shaking for me. Now, the good thing is it turns out that I do have a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. So I was able to turn that into a very successful public speaking career after being thrown in front of reporters a bunch of time and then doing some keynotes in front of crowds and realizing I really like this thing. I like talking to a crowd. I like to inform and entertain and inspire people. But it was very different, and it was a big change for me. I had to come out of the shadows, if you will, and right into the limelight, and I haven't left yet. Ryan Phillippe, look, he had a couple of choices. He was going to play a real person. Now, he's done that a number of times before. Right before he shot Breach, he was in a great movie called Flags of Our Fathers, where he played a Navy veteran, and he actually met the person that he played. But the way he told it, he said it was much different from meeting you, because I'm meeting a guy who's at the end of his life, and you're a year older than me. So he had a few choices. he could build his character by spending a lot of time with me, or he could say, I don't really want to spend time with Eric. It's intimidating. I need to build the character myself. And he chose the former, which was great for me because it gave me this unparalleled access to Hollywood, which nobody gets. And even better, Ryan Phillippe is a really cool guy. It turned out we had a huge amount in common. His grandfather and my grandfather both served in surface warfare in the Pacific. So they were both there at around the same time. His mother was a nurse. His father was an engineer, so is mine. We're really close in age. So we became friends. And that's how he built the character. And at one point, we were on set shooting. And you take these breaks and everybody kind of walks around and chats and before they go and take the next shot. And Juliana, my wife, walked up to Ryan and she said, I've read the screenplay and you totally ad-libbed that scene. And he said, well, was there something wrong? And she said, no, but it was perfect. Like the only person I've ever heard who says those kind of things is Eric. Where'd you get that? He said, I'm just that good. So, it turned out to be a great synergy between the two of us. He did a great job in that role. I think he portrayed me very well. And part of that was because he got to know me. So he was able to pull some of the intricacies from my life and display them on screen, which served me great because, for years, when people Googled Eric O'Neill after watching Breach or learning something about the movie and the story, they thought it was Ryan Phillippe. And that ain't a bad thing.
No. Did they add anything to the movie? Because it's Hollywood, right? So nothing's ever a true story that comes out of Hollywood. Did they add anything that you were either like, that was awesome, they added it, or slightly disappointed that they changed something in the story?
Well, the way it's a Hollywood movie. And one thing that Billy Ray, the director, sat me down before he even started the first day of shooting. And when we were still doing tweaks on the screenplay together. And he said, you have to conceptually understand that I'm not making a documentary. I'm making a Hollywood movie that's big and bold and needs to sell. We're turning an FBI procedural into a thriller. Now, he did it in a really clever way. He kept the core of the story pristine. When you watch Breach and you see the two guys in a room and you read my book, Gray Day, you're going to see all of the synonyms between the two. You're going to see how the investigation where I go undercover to try to catch Robert Hansen is pretty much shot for shot the way it happened in real life. Then they surrounded it with Hollywood. So the biggest scene, everyone asked this, and there's a story behind it. But the biggest scene that was manufactured is the word, by Hollywood, is the shooting in the woods scene. So there's a scene at the end of the movie where Hansen is questioning whether the information assurance section, the section in FBI headquarters that he's been promoted to, and it was really an elaborate mousetrap, is really an investigation and not a real job. And he's questioning it. And my character, Ryan Phillippe, playing Eric O'Neill, has to pull him back in, make him feel that it's real. And there's this whole scene, which actually becomes a pivotal favorite scene in the movie, where he drags Eric out to the woods, Rock Creek Park, right around the corner from where I still live, and they end up having this shouting match, and Hansen starts firing off shots right near Eric, and it ends with this climactic, "You don't matter." In other words, trying to tell him, you're such a narcissist, you have this overinflated ego, and it's making you think that you're under investigation, when really you're just a guy working a job at headquarters. And it pulls him back into the case, and he makes the final drop to the Russians, and then Eric wins, right? In real life, that happened. But it was a series of painstaking conversations where I reeled him back in and made him feel that this was a real job and what we were doing was important. That doesn't really translate well to screen. Now, the reason he shoots at me in that scene, this really compelling flash in the pan scene, is we were sitting around a table at Universal with a lot of producers who all feel that they have to do value add to the movie. And one of them raises his finger and just says with this this voice of authority. We cannot have an FBI movie where the bad guy does not get into a shootout with the hero. And the room went quiet. And Billy Ray, who's sitting right next to me, he's the director. He puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, but it never happened. And the guy goes, it doesn't matter. It's Hollywood. And he said, yeah, but Eric right here here's my hand right here on my shoulder, is going to have to spend the rest of his days standing up in front of audiences and telling them why this scene didn't really happen. And he was right. I told this story a million times, but it's a funny story and it's a great story. And it really gives you an insight into Hollywood, how they will take truth and bend it to fit the red meat the audience needs. And I didn't have a problem with that. I knew in my mind, this is a Hollywood movie. We're going to have a lot of fun, but we're going to get the core of it right. And years later, I wrote Gray Day. Gray Day I wrote in 2019. And I'm so happy I waited, because if I had written it then, it would have just been about the Hansen story. By waiting until I had a career working in cybersecurity and counterintelligence, I was able to broaden it out to something much bigger and much more important for the work we're doing in cybersecurity.
Yeah, I just to shamelessly plug your book, I learned a lot, and I am a pretty big fan of and consider myself a cyber historian and all of those things. But obviously, I think your access to some of the information in there a little bit better than I have access to publicly. And so, you know, I think I was fascinated by what we see today are the same techniques, just manifested with different tools. Right. Motivation's the same, all of that stuff. And so I clearly remember hearing your keynote for the first time. And then I was like, what is Eric talking about? Spy? And I have to say, Eric, over the last 7-8 years, seemingly as you dig into it, I was like, well, this is another case of a nation state or espionage. This was a clear case of intelligence gathering to get a lead on a market. But the reasons, the motivations, and then the techniques, all the same, just facilitated through digital tooling. And I think that has been fascinating to kind of be part of on the game field, and then also observe from the sidelines. So to anyone out there who's really interested in sort of this history of spycraft, and I can assure you there was things going on in the 60s you don't know about that were replicated in modern elections using different means. Those are the ones where I got a huge amount of value out of it, Eric. So thank you for spending some time and research on that. And on that note, and this is a question we get all the time. Mm-hmm. I'll lovingly refer to anybody external as cyber criminals, and I'll lovingly refer to anybody inside an organization as an insider. As you're out speaking to companies, what's a bigger threat, an insider or some advanced cyber criminal group that's out there?
Right. At this point, it's the outsiders. It's the advanced cyber threat, because those outsiders are continually launching attacks. What I tell companies all the time is, it doesn't matter how big you are or how important you are, or whether you have something you think someone would want to steal. Data is a commodity in of itself. And so for cyber criminals now, they don't care about any of that. All they care is whether you're vulnerable. Because if they can find a vulnerability, and sometimes they are just doing drive-by searches of networks to see if there is an open network somewhere, if there's an unpatched vulnerability, and then they attack you. They don't even know who you are. They do the research after they've attacked you to try to learn how much they're going to charge you in ransom. They like to get into data, and the first places they look, for example, are financials, because they're trying to find your cyber insurance policy to see what your limits are. So they will pretty much try to set the ransom at the limit of your policy. And then when you complain, they say, just go get it from your insurance and here's your policy, see it. Trusted insiders, of course, are absolutely devastating. So in terms of the amount of damage that can be done, a trusted insider is going to be far more damaging, because this is a person that is already within the circle of trust. This is a person that you have given access to the data. You've hired them. They work for you. They have access, and you trust them, and they betray you. That betrayal can be massively damaging, because you don't see it coming until after it's happened. the goal with external cyber attackers who are coming after us constantly, whether we're ready for it or not, is to be ready for it and to assume it's going to happen and to prevent it. The interesting thing, Rick, is that the best way to stop a trusted insider is by installing all of the very good data controls that will stop an external threat actor. You know, some years ago, we used to say, oh, well, you need to learn about the psychology of trusted insiders, and you need to learn to be able to observe all your employees and know when they're having a problem. I mean, sometimes people just have a bad day. And today that's even more useless because we're not all collecting in an office. You can't see what Ted or Sally is feeling in a day because you're just seeing the fake face they give you in a Zoom conference. So if we can limit access, if we can control accounts, and if we can use technology to tell us when someone's account is doing something weird that's out of the norm, we might be catching an account that's been compromised from an external threat actor, but we also might be stopping an account that's a trusted insider that's decided, I want to steal data because I want to make a quick buck. People still do that all the time. They can be recruited by foreign spies or they can be recruited by competitors. And, you know, take as much data as you can on your way out. They can be recruited by intelligence services, and suddenly you see that your network is being accessed by a foreign country and gigabytes of data are leaving. I mean, first of all, if you have everything opened, your pipelines are open that wide, so that can even happen, you've got a problem. A lot of companies will throttle so that IT actually has to open the throttle for big downloads and uploads. Just to prevent something like that. So really the tools that we are deploying now to protect companies from external threats are the same tools that can protect from that internal trusted insider.
Yeah, you know, as you kind of alluded to, I think in the earlier discussion, I think the way we think about it is the external actors are all going to become trusted insiders at some point because they're going after your credentials. Right. They want to replicate Eric O'Neill, live inside of his communications, understand those communications flows. Hey, what can I do with that? You know, does Eric have the ability to wire transfer? All of these things that they do once they're inside of an environment. But it gives us, I think, as defenders, unique opportunities to actually observe that behavior and stop it, which is great. Hey, Eric, go ahead. As we're sort of rounding the horn here a little bit, you've done so much in your career, but I'm curious. I think I told you this. I've been thinking about writing a book for a while. So talk to me a little bit about what it was like publishing a book like Gray Day. So obviously an inordinate amount of research was leveraged, you know, into this book. And then you had to talk to a publisher. The publisher had to be interested. What was that like? And is there any lessons that you can impart to people who are considering writing a book?
I'd love to. I mean, writing is a passion of mine. I know it is yours as well. I've always written, and I had on my bucket list to write a book before I die. So I've checked off one of those things, right? It wasn't easy. Writing a book is very difficult, and not just because it's hard to come up with a great story that is going to resonate and truly wow people. Every book that gets published at least is trying to do that. It's also because the publishing industry has collapsed a bit. The big publishers, which is really where you want to go, they're just not buying as many books. There's a lot more scrutiny. They're looking for much more polished manuscripts before they'll even think about it. It's very hard to get access. So the first step is getting an agent. You still need to do that. The publishing industry will almost not touch you unless an agent has first vetted your work and submitted it. Now, I was very fortunate because my agent found me. She came up to me after a keynote that I had called Cybersecurity in the Age of Espionage. And it was about the Hansen case, but then it moved into how cyber espionage has evolved into cyber attacks, and it sort of ended with the really thrilling Palm Pilot story from the Hansen case. And she said, if you just wrote your 45-minute keynote up exactly as you said it, I'd have a proposal to take to a publisher. So I sat down and I started writing, and I I always had this idea of this book in my head. And then 30,000 words later, I had way more than she wanted and pretty much a novella. And we worked together to edit and submitted it to publishers, and they loved the idea, which wasn't just the first person narrative of how we caught Robert Hansen, the inside look in being in that investigation, in the most unique investigation the FBI had ever run, but also this idea of how espionage itself has changed. I was saying it, but no one had really written about it that way. And that was really compelling to publishers who thought, okay, this is a unique story that only Eric can tell, that people will want to read. And that's what you're looking for as a writer, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. You need something unique. You need to tell it in a way that you are the only one who can tell it. And it has to be something that people are going to want to read. And then it's a lot of work. It was an immense amount of research. It was constant back and forth with the FBI. A unique thing for anyone who works under a very significant security clearance is that you sign an agreement that you will allow your agency to vet anything you write. So the first people to read my manuscript in full was the FBI with a very heavy red pen. And it was good. I'm a lawyer because I was fighting back. They're like, national security. I'm like, freedom of speech. And look, I'm a big hawk for national security. I mean, nobody when I was a lawyer wanted me to do the redactions because it would be mostly black. But then when I was on the other side, I'm like, no, all this has to be out there. And I got a lot pushed through. Things that had never been put into the public. In fact, the FBI declassified a large amount of information just for me because they thought that the book was going to do really well for the FBI and recruitment. And it ended up doing that. I mean, the number one thing they declassified for me was the title of my book, Grade A. That was Hansen's code name. Before I published my book, that was never out in the public. So it's difficult to write a book. It's grueling. It's excruciating. If you want to write a book, write it because you love to write. But it is immensely rewarding to see that book, to feel it in your hands with a cover and everything. And every step of the way was one of the greatest joys of my life.
I thought it was really cool getting a signed copy, so I appreciate it. Do we have you lined up for a book signing at Black Hat this year? Are we doing
we should absolutely do that.
Yeah, so if you make it to Black Hat, it's very easy to find Eric. Please go read his book. And, again, I thought, especially for, I think, folks that are newer to cybersecurity, there's been a long history, right? And I know I talk enough about it, and Eric does, because the history really matters. The evolution of what these attackers are doing. It's a very clear line back all the way. And on the spy side, very clear line of evolutionary changes, and something gets discovered and we change what we do on the detection side, and the game continues, right? So last question, Eric. And I am interested in your response to this one. So you've dug into a lot of spies. Your whole career has really been dedicated to this. But I like cool stories. Is there one particular spy story that stands out to you as, like, for whatever reason, it's just different than the rest of them?
Yeah, I thought a lot about this, and I get asked a lot, well, what was an interesting story from when you were in the FBI? Well, I've written about a lot of them because there are very few that I'm actually allowed to talk about. There are a lot of spy stories that I have to carry to my grave that I can't tell anyone ever. But I did a lot of research for Grade A, and I found this really interesting spy story that happened with an employee for a defense contractor out in California. And I like to tell that one because it's just bananas. This guy is a real person. He was, his name was Gregory Allen Justice. And he worked the graveyard shift as a mechanical engineer for a US defense contractor. We don't have to name it, out in California, like I said. I mean, the stuff he was doing was pretty critical. He was working on military satellites that were being used by the Air Force, the Navy, and NASA, and others. So real important information. And he decided he was going to become a spy. And there were a couple of reasons for that. He was at a loss for money. He was leveraged way ahead. His car had just broken down. His wife, he was married, was ill, and he couldn't even pay for her doctor's visits, much less take her to the doctor's visits because his car was broken down. And part of the reason that he needed money is he was spending a ton of his paycheck on his girlfriend, who oddly, this guy, Gregory Allen Justice, hadn't even met. This woman called Shay, who he'd met on the internet. And she would send him these pictures of herself, and he would send her lavish gifts on Amazon, like a full grill, a few iPhones. He would send her cash. I mean, it was just nuts. And he felt like, I'm living this James Bond lifestyle. But he never met her. So he's a weird dude, and he decides he needs to spy. So he gets ready. He watches all the episodes of the TV show The Americans. And then he feels, all right, now I'm ready to do this. Like, I know how to go undercover now and steal. And then he prepares by going online and purchasing $4,000 in online courses. And these things are weird. They're like Spy, Escape and Evade, Delta Defense LLC, Legally Concealed, and Fight Fast. So now he feels like he's ready to be James Bond. And he decides to spy. So in November, one cold day in November, he plugs a USB thumb drive into his workstation. Now, his workstation, by the way, is one of those workstations where you need to go into a secure environment. He's working on a government contract. It's top secret. And so he has to swipe his badge through a few doors. He goes into his workstation, gets into the workstation, and accesses the computer and downloads satellite design information. And then from February, so he does this in November, he pulls a lot of documents out. And from February until May, he meets with a handler from Russia. He calls the Russian consulate and he says, I would like to be a spy, and I've got military satellite information. And they're like, they don't answer. And he's frustrated and he keeps calling. And then finally somebody calls him and says, I hear that you have satellite information to sell. And he's like, who is this? The Russians. He's like, how do you know that? He's like, well, we're the Russian intelligence. And he meets with them. They sit down at a coffee shop and they meet, and he hands over the thumb drive and they hand him cash. And he makes a ton of cash. He gets, I don't know, three, four envelopes of cash from his Russian intelligence officers. And he tells them things like, oh, I've watched all the Americans. I know all about spying. I'm really good at this. And then he says, I want to be known by a code name. And they're like, well, what code name do you want to be known as? Now, get this. The guy's name is Gregory Allen Justice. That's already a kind of a badass name for a spy. But he says, I want my spy name to be Brian. So his spy name becomes Brian. Get that, right? On the fourth time he meets with his Russian intelligence handlers, the FBI put handcuffs on him and he's arrested. They were building the case against him. What he didn't know is that his call to the Russians was intercepted. Before he even decided he was going to call them, his defense contractor employer had identified that someone had plugged in a thumb drive where they shouldn't, endpoint security, it caught it. And instead of grabbing the guy and questioning them, they called the FBI. The FBI said, leave him alone, let him keep stealing, just monitor him, and we're going to build a case against him. So they called him using a FBI agent who was trained to sound like a Russian and did what's called a false flag operation. And so Gregory Allen Justice, the spy known as Brian, ended up going to jail for conspiracy to commit espionage and for data theft from his employer.
Wow.
Just a crazy spy. But I love it because it's an example of how people still operate as trusted insiders. You know, people still go rogue within organizations for all sorts of information, all sorts of reasons. And really all it takes is a triggering event. Guy decided he needed money. Oh, by the way, his girlfriend, Che, wasn't a girl at all. when he was finally was found by the FBI and interviewed, it was someone who had just totally scammed him over the internet. So don't trust who you meet online either. Lots of lessons in the story.
Yeah, just Nigerian princes. They're trustworthy.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. I think we've got 2 questions as we're wrapping up, right, Bradley?
Yeah, gentlemen, thank you so much. Eric, it was wonderful to hear about your story. I had seen a clip from a similar talk you gave several years ago to some colleagues of mine. It's always nice to hear firsthand. I was laughing out loud about Brian. That threw me. I love the conversation about teamwork and diverse backgrounds. You shared how you kind of found your way into cyber, and certainly themes that we like to pull on here with the US Cyber Games. So Rick, yeah, if you don't mind, we got to hear a little bit about Eric. I would love to give you a minute or two of the limelight and tell us what does a principal security strategist at VMware Carbon Black do? What is a day in the life?
Yeah, that's a good question. No day is the same. They all look different, but generally speaking, what we do is we focus externally on evangelism. So you'll often see us doing keynotes, talks, and news stories come up all the time, right? So it's good that mainstream media cares about cyber, so they need people to explain it to them. I think Eric, myself, and Karen, and a few other folks in the company filled that role. For customers, here's where we're really focused. Trusted advisory services, and really maturing what they're doing from an endpoint perspective, a security perspective. And then I think what we're big on is driving organizations to be proactive. So, hey, how can we get out of the mess of reactive security and drive towards a place where you have teams that are actively hunting these folks inside of your environment? And so a lot of the education that we provide is really on that. How do you hunt better? How do we begin to expose techniques, tactics, and procedures in various versions of technology, because they all look a little differently. And then how do you as an organization respond to that, both from a technology and security perspective, because there's the quarantine and the cleanup and all of that. But now there's governmental regulations, we've got insurer regulations, and then of course your legal team is going to have a lot to say during those events. So we try to work with the executives of an organization as well, just to build a more resilient program. And then the last thing I'll talk about is we're really big on the people inside of InfoSec. So a lot of times when you hear what we're talking about, we're obviously going to be talking about technology. We're obviously going to be talking about those cool things. But I think for us, what we're keenly interested in doing is changing the people equation inside of cyber, so that folks that are graduating and coming in now get to experience a little bit of a better life than we did, right? So moving away from 3 a.m. wake ups and getting attacked on holidays and not being able to spend time with your family. So yeah, and I will say it's been absolutely a joy, honor, and privilege to do this job. It's my favorite job I've ever had. And it's changed my life greatly, including being able to come on things like this and talk to some of those next generation folks that are getting in.
Very cool. And I'm going to lob one more at you. I saw it come in from the chat, and my team on the back end might hate me for delaying our run of show a little bit, but I promise I'll make it up to them. There's actually something you mentioned, mainstream media, seeing cybersecurity in the headlines all the time. It's law, it's policy, it's what's going on in Europe, it's chat GPT and, large language models. What's it for you guys? What is kind of the coolest next thing, or what are you super laser focused on? I'll lob it to each of you, just a quick sort of.
I talk a lot about the fake present and the fake future that we're all living in. And I say that half sarcastically. And if you follow any of my stuff, I'm pretty sarcastic. But, that being said, what is true on the internet? What is not true? This is a huge question for humans moving forward. And it's just going to get exacerbated by bringing sort of these AI models online. So I think there's an expectation. Disinformation is going to massively increase. Misinformation will massively increase. And humans, we know how humans react to information. They're going to do some things based on that information. And so I think as a group of humans who want to have true, real conversations with each other across the globe, we're going to have a lot of work to do, both on the vendor side. And then I think each individual human, as we're taking in this information that may or may not, and in a lot of cases, it is in fact not real, how do we strengthen ourselves as humans to not react to that? To not do the emotional hooks that get you to click on an email that then get you a piece of malware, or get you to go to a voting booth and pull a lever. So I think for humans, we've got to get a little bit smarter and understand all of the forces involved in generating sort of that content to get people to do stuff and propaganda. And yeah, it's going to get real interesting over the next, I think, few years on that.
Very cool.
Sure, I'll take a stab here. Yes, been talking quite a bit about the large learning language models, the Chat GPT, the AI. But Rick pretty much answered that. I think trust soon will be an uncommon commodity. That's something I've been saying lately. We won't know what we can believe, what is real on the internet. We already had an example of a woman who was attacked by scammers who used not only her daughter's image but voice which was just cloned using AI in order to get her to pay a ransom, thinking that her daughter was kidnapped. We're going to see a lot more of that. It's the natural extension of the old CEO, CFO, pay this invoice right away attack. AI is just going to make all of this much more easy and prevalent. What I've been doing a lot of thought leadership on investigation into and talking about is the dark web. People don't know what the dark web is. People don't know how it exists. They don't understand that law enforcement is completely neutered in their ability to stop it, that it exists within the internet itself in many volunteer servers that are all over the world and can't be shut down or moved before they can be shut down. And the fact that it provides a launching pad, not only for espionage, but for this massive burgeoning industry of cybercrime. Cybercrime syndicates who have formed that have entire business verticals from development to marketing and tech support in order to attack, training. They're even hiring people who come from intelligence agencies in order to help them build novel malicious software attacks. And they're using the dark web as a platform not only to launch attacks, but to buy and sell all of their ill-gotten gains. Just to give you a super fast statistics, the internet right now is 79 zettabytes. By 2025, it'll be 180 zettabytes. We can't conceive of a zettabyte, right? But basically, if I stacked paper from my feet as high as it could possibly go to 1 zettabyte, it would hit the Andromeda galaxy. That's how much data we are pumping into the internet. I mean, every minute of every day we do 1.2 million hours of streaming, 300,000 photos shared, 575,000 useless tweets, and 6 million independent online shopping transactions. So we're growing the internet by leaps and bounds. We're putting all of our data out there, and that builds the dark web, that bottom layer of the internet where all of this stuff gets bought and sold. So we need to take some more care about not only what we're doing online, but the presence online that we're building. And that is what I've been doing a lot of thinking about lately.
Fascinating. Gentlemen, you've been incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your day with us, for supporting the program. We'll be out in San Diego for the international games this summer. Maybe we'll catch one or two of you there. But again, from the bottom of my heart, really appreciate all you do, all the support for the US Cyber Games. Thanks for being here today. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
All right.
Folks, we're going to jump to a quick commercial, and then we will transition into our next session, accelerating incident response with generative AI. All righty, folks, welcome back. And thanks for all of you that have been with us since the beginning. We are moving the show forward with our next talk. I'm fortunate to welcome in Joshua Wright. Joshua is a senior technical director with CounterHack and the author of one of SANS most popular courses, Sec 504, Hacker Tools, Techniques, Exploits, and Incident Handling. We are fortunate today to have Joshua presenting on accelerating incident response with generative AI. I know this is a topic that everyone's been reaching out about. We just heard a couple of mentions of large language models and the impact of AI, and we're going to talk about generative AI in a little bit of a different sense. So Joshua, whenever you're ready, we would love to welcome you into the main floor here. Joshua, good afternoon. How's it going?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me. Thanks everybody for giving me the time today.
Wonderful, excellent. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate your support. I know the generative AI piece, specifically around incident response, is something many of our young athletes and those joining us later on in their careers, transitioning into cyber, are going to be hungry for some information. So I will turn it over to you, my friend, whenever you are ready. Take it away.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right. So I want to spend some time talking about AI today, but I don't want to be a stereotype. I don't want to be, everybody's talking about AI. Everybody has a product to sell. Everybody has some kind of a gimmick and it's made more popular by AI. What I want to do today is I want to spend some time talking about how I'm practically applying AI when I'm doing incident response for customers and accelerating my ability to be effective as an incident response, as a detection engineer, as a threat hunting analyst in my consulting work. Now, as Brad mentioned, I am a faculty fellow for the SANS Institute. I wrote the SANS Sec 504 class information, and this content is something that I've written but haven't yet released in class. So this is the first time I've talked about this topic here, because I think it's important that we as analysts understand the practical nature of what this technology can do for us. So that's going to be our focus as we go through this material today. So the premise that I want to convey to you today is that generative AI that generates content, is valuable for us to accelerate analysis tasks. And we're going to look at 4 examples where we can use AI, and I'm going to focus on ChatGPT here. We can use AI to meet our goals as incident response analysts, such as reducing our mean time to resolution, or MTTR, when we're responding to threats inside of our organizations, whether you're working as a threat analyst internally, or as a SOC analyst, or even as some kind of another detection engineer, looking at threats, performing threat hunting, and looking for these types of vulnerabilities and how we can respond to this. Part of this is going to be talking about how AI is not a replacement for human expertise. And I think that you will see several cases where AI is great, but it's not going to replace the work that I do or the expertise that I need to be effective in my work, but it will help accelerate a lot of the work. Now, I was actually, I take a yoga class a couple times a week. I was there this morning, and the other people in my class are not technical people. They work from all sorts of industries, and they're not into technology, but people were having conversations about AI, and it's interesting to hear how this topic has spread into so many different industries, and so many different kind of walks of life are interested, are fearful, are looking at AI. And what I want to talk about today is how we can use this as a tool, just like any other tool at our disposal, to help do better at the work that we need to do. So let's start right with our first case study here. So I work for a consulting company called CounterHack, and at CounterHack, we do all sorts of work. We do penetration testing work, we do incident response work, architecture review, a lot of cloud stuff, web applications, things like that. And we had a case where a customer identified that they saw an unauthorized user on a local Windows system. The username was broken with an E instead of a 3, and it tipped somebody off, and they said, that doesn't belong here, and they called the incident response team. So they went to the local incident response team, escalating from the help desk. The local incident response team took a look at the system. They did some file system forensic analysis, and they found a bunch of files in the local app data /temp directory. Very, very common temporary location for attackers to be able to write files to after compromising a system. And in that bundle of files, we found the attacker's toolkit. At this point, now the customer sharing information with us, we're looking at the information, and there was one zipped file which had C# source code. Now, presumably the C# source code was used to try to evade some endpoint protection controls in the system by using built-in Windows utility, what we'd call a lolbin attack, a living off the land binaries and scripts attack. But we started looking at the C# source code here, and the pressure's on. Anytime you're working on an incident, people want answers right away. What should we be doing? And I turned to ChatGPT here to help me kind of answer this question. I've got my C# source code, and people are asking me, what does this source code do? Can you explain it to me? Now, they're not programmers, but I can use AI to try to help answer that question. So I went on ChatGPT here, and after a couple of failed attempts, I made a question, and I said, please explain this excerpt from the C# source code in triple quotes below, so I'm clearly delineating where the source code is and where my question is, and explain it to a non-programming audience. Determine if the source code is malicious or benign in nature. And this is the source code here. It's a little bit redacted and trimmed down here, but you can see we've got a bunch of hex strings, which is our shell code here. And if you're familiar with C# programming, the rest of this code probably looks familiar if you've done this kind of incident response work before. Allocate some memory, copy the shell code into memory, set up some variables and pointers, and then create a thread executing this code. So this is clearly shell code, and now this C# code is just executing it. So the real question is not, what does this do? Because with a little bit of C# programming experience, you can figure that out. The real question is, what does this do? That's what I wanted to know. And ChatGPT was not that helpful. ChatGPT came back and it said, oh, this C# code is designed to execute a series of instructions shell code on a Windows system. Thanks. Okay, I got that. Okay. It allocates a array of bytes. It allocates some memory. It copies. It executes. It returns true. Okay, and then this is the part that I thought was really interesting. As for the nature of the source code, it's difficult to determine if it's malicious or benign without knowing the purpose of the shell code. Now, one of the things that I've had to learn in using AI is how to be better at writing prompts. And there's a lot of kind of tongue-in-cheek references to prompt engineering, where somebody's job in the future may be just to write AI prompts to be able to get useful information out of it. But initially, I was kind of disappointed. ChatGPT didn't really tell me anything I didn't already know. It did give me some, a nice breakdown here. I can show that to my customer. Maybe that saves me the effort of having to write that up myself. But it doesn't really tell me what I want to know about this code. This is where we get into the need to be good at writing prompts. And I put together a couple of tips here that I've learned and from reading different resources. When you're using these AI systems, things like iterative prompt development is helpful. Start with a question and then refine it, and refine it again, and refine as many times as necessary to get to what you're looking for. Use those delimiters to say, here's my question, but here's the code I want you to analyze. So there's no confusion about what is what. You can ask for structured output. You can guide generative AI platforms like ChatGPT, determine whether the PowerShell commands and quotes below are valid, for example. You can also give the model time to think. And at first I thought, this is insane. Computers don't need time to think. But actually, by instructing the AI system to please think carefully before answering, slow down, review the answer, you will sometimes get different responses from things like ChatGPT, and also to be specific in your instructional verbs. summarize the information below, extract the details important for a CISO, for example. Using the right verb helps ChatGPT steer the response to something that's going to be more useful for you. Now, something that I found when I was doing this early on is that there's a great opportunity here to take a free class from deeplearning.ai. They have a ChatGPT prompt engineering for developers. This is really a great resource, and it didn't take me more than maybe a couple of hours at 2x speed to blaze through all the videos here. But it got me from not knowing a lot about prompt engineering to being pretty effective at asking questions on the AI. And this is just a free class that I stumbled upon that I found particularly useful. So to get back to that code, I went back to ChatGPT and I said, I want you to look at that shellcode, review the contents of the shellcode, explain what the shellcode does when executed on a Windows system. And then ChatGPT came back and said, oh, well, when you put it that way, when I analyze the shellcode, it does appear to be malicious in nature. And sure enough, the shellcode analysis here says it runs CMD, and then from CMD, it runs net user broken with a password, and it also adds that user to the local administrators group. No big shocker there, but this is the kind of thing that we can go from, I've got a bunch of code, and maybe I'm not a C# programmer, or maybe I'm not familiar with what this different kind of shellcode statement's going to be here, but ChatGPT can help guide me to some answers and at least give me some working information. And that's been a really valuable tool for me when I've been doing incident response and looking at source code left by an attacker. Here's another case that is sort of similar, but different in its own way. This is another case where we're helping a customer, and there was it started with an indicator of compromise in IOC. The first IOC was that the help desk kept escalating a ticket to the systems team that a WordPress server kept crashing. So customer had a WordPress server, WordPress kept going down. They didn't know why. Sysadmin would reboot the server, WordPress would come back up, everybody would shrug, and then it would just happen again. So after getting that initial IOC, the sysadmin started spending more time looking at it and noticed that the server was at 100% CPU utilization, so completely pegged on all CPU cores. And the process that was taking so much CPU was the Linux HTTPD process, which is the Apache web server process. That gave the sysadmin some clues to say, well, this is Apache, let me look at logs. They started looking at Apache web server logs, and they saw a lot of frequent requests for the server /wp-includes/fkhdupz.php, a name that wasn't familiar to the analyst, and that triggered an incident response function. So at this point, I became involved and I got access to this particular PHP source code here. They gave me access to the server to do some live forensics because they were not willing to take the server down. And I started looking at it and looking at this source code here. This is what I saw. This is a PHP script, which is not uncommon for an attacker to use on a WordPress server after exploiting the server and trying to establish some kind of a backdoor. But it is almost unrecognizable. Like I see that this is the start of a PHP script statement right here. I see this is a variable. Explode is a PHP function. I see, 1L, so visually confusing here as a delimiter, splitting on this big long string on all these different ILs here. But what that PH code does, I don't know. Okay. Now, this incident actually happened before ChatGPT 3.5 came out. When I was working this case, I actually had to analyze that code manually, and I'll talk more about that in just a minute. But in preparing for this presentation, I wanted to see, could ChatGPT have helped me with this analysis? If it's some heavily obfuscated PHP code here, can it help me with this? So I went to ChatGPT, and what I found useful in prompt engineering is to tell ChatGPT what its role is. Assume the role of a cybersecurity response, incident response analyst. You are tasked with reviewing source code for an obfuscated PHP file presented in triple quotes below. You identified this file on a Linux server, so giving the AI some information, some background information to work with. And then I said, I want you to deobfuscate this code into its simplest form. I want you to explain what the code does in no more than 3 sentences. And I want you to present a detailed analysis as well, rewriting the code in deobfuscated PHP form, so that I get my summary, I get the deobfuscated form, I get my executive kind of 3-sentence review, and I get the detailed analysis by directing ChatGPT to give me those answers. And ChatGPT, was quick to come back and say, all right, I can do that. And so I have that code here. And this code, you can see, here's the full code, and you only saw the snippet in the slide, but it's quite long, and there's a lot of kind of weird stuff going on here inside of this source code. But ChatGPT came back and it said, okay, here's the rewritten version of the code. And to its credit, it used comments, it used function names that made sense. It's valid code that executes properly. This code does have some weird left shift and right shift in it to obfuscate, and ChatGPT decoded that as well. The problem is it decoded it incorrectly. The end of the result is that it gave me this summary, it gave me this detailed review, but things like this were not correct. LLJ was not the key information. You can see here that IL is the key information. So this was a mistake that ChatGPT made right from the get-go. And the rest of the analysis, while kind of getting to the gist of this is a backdoor left behind by an attacker, was not valid. It was incorrect. Now, here's the thing where it's easy to look at that and say, well, if ChatGPT is not giving me the right answers, then I don't want to use it, okay? The problem that I had with this is that ChatGPT gave me close enough analysis in about 18 seconds. When I did the analysis manually, it took me, about 3 hours to do it. And, a lot of, cracking my knuckles and a lot of, I made a mistake and starting over again. It took me as a human a lot longer. I'm more confident in my analysis than I am in ChatGPT's analysis. I know ChatGPT made some mistakes, but it does get us a little bit of the way there. I bring this example up because I think it's important to know that the AI is not always going to be correct. And the dilemma for us as analysts is, how do we know when it's correct and how do we know when it's not correct? If you're not doing the work manually to compare your results to the AI's results, then you don't really have that confidence that it is correct. Now, there is something to be said for, well, let me start with this and then just go through this and get a sense of, is it mostly correct? At the end of the day, this code is running eval, which is PHP's function to be able to execute a command from the encoded data supplied as an input argument to this PHP script. At the end of the day, I got my answer. It's a backdoor. Not a shocker there, but how ChatGPT got to that was not 100% correct. This is one of the dilemmas that we have to keep in mind, is that the AI won't always be correct, but we might be able to shave off some time from the 3-hour manual analysis by using this as a starting point and then maybe completing the manual analysis from here. One of the problems that we have with ChatGPT is the problem of hallucinations. It's a term that we hear a lot when we talk about large language models. ChatGPT and other LLMs will hallucinate or just make stuff up. So, this is a little bit contrived, but I went to ChatGPT and I said, describe the impact to a Windows-centric network when an attacker uses the Heartbane exploit. Limit the response to 1 sentence. The problem with hallucinations is that the AI will respond with confidence. So here, ChatGPT replies and says, oh, the Heartbane exploit can allow an attacker to remotely execute code on a vulnerable Windows system, giving them access to sensitive information to control the network. The dilemma is heartbeat doesn't exist. I made that up. That's not a thing. The problem with a lot of the AI models right now is that they have trouble differentiating between when you're asking it for creative writing and when you're asking for factual analysis. Now, this was ChatGPT 3.5. ChatGPT 4 is better at eliminating hallucinations, but I think this is going to be a problem that we all need to keep in mind. When we're working with AI, we can't always believe the results, either because ChatGPT made some mistakes in decoding the PHP code, or because ChatGPT doesn't have an answer to that and thinks you're looking for a creative response. These are important elements to keep in mind anytime we use these tools. Let's talk about another case here. This will be the last example where we're talking about code, and I've got one more example after that. But instead of trying to decode some code, here, I'm telling ChatGPT to write code for me. Now, this was another IOC where a customer's Windows 10 system got compromised with what we believe to be a zero-day exploit. We don't have a lot of details on it, and there weren't a lot of remnants left behind on the system. But we know by looking at logging information, by looking at App Locker, by looking at the application allow list controls on the system and the logging data, an attacker used this zero-day and then bypass the application allow list controls by executing a command osk.exe. The customer had put osk.exe, which is normally the on-screen keyboard and accessibility tool for Windows, into their application allow list, and an attacker was abusing that by renaming their attack code to osk.exe, and they were bypassing the allow list in that fashion. So what we needed to do is to perform what we call scoping in incident response. In incident response, scoping is where we take a piece of information that we've learned, some threat intel. Attacker is running a binary called osk.exe, and we want to interrogate our fleet of systems. Where did somebody run osk.exe? It's not that common of a process where we can't just ask all of our Windows systems, hey, look through all of the App Locker logs and tell me any system that's run OSK, because that system may be compromised. And reasonably, you could do this with PowerShell. Okay? Now, given a little bit of time, I could probably write some PowerShell to do that from scratch. But I chose to use ChatGPT here to try to accelerate my analysis. I can write code in PowerShell. It's not my favorite language, but I can do it when I need to. I'm going to Google some things in the process. Or I can get 90% of the way there using ChatGPT. So I went to ChatGPT here, and I said, hey, ChatGPT, write a PowerShell script. Here's what I want you to do. Read from a text file containing host names or IP addresses, one per line. For each host, use PowerShell remoting. Interrogate the Windows event log for App Locker. Look for any log messages that include the string OSK. Make a list of output, one host per line, and that's the list of hosts that I'm going to interrogate on the system. And I could have expanded that, extract the log, make a CSV file output, or make a JSON file output with the IP address, the host name, the log message, when it happened, whatever I want. Here, I'm just keeping it simple, but you can augment this or even use iterative prompting to add more functionality just using ChatGPT. To its credit, ChatGPT came back pretty quickly here, and the code worked. Okay, it even had comments integrated into it. So now I can hand it to a colleague. It's already commented out for them, and they can use this as well. You know, this was actually delightful because, you know, I would have had to have looked up. I know AppLocker logs the name of executables, but what is the name of that log? I'm going to have to Google that. What is the name of the command to be able to interrogate event log information? Now, it wasn't perfect. You know, ChatGPT used get win event here, which is fine. It is basically sucking in every single log into a block and then using the PowerShell pipeline to interrogate it, which is not ideal. It's going to perform fairly slowly, particularly over a large fleet of Windows systems, but it gets me 90% of the way there. I didn't have to tell ChatGPT that the app locker log is called Microsoft Windows App Locker /exe and DLL. I didn't have to tell it to silently ignore errors in case that log does not exist, because if app locker is not turned on, that log won't exist, the logging data isn't there. But it got me really far, really quickly. And from here, I was able to take this, refine it a little bit. I did optimize it after a little testing so I could run it against a large fleet of systems, and it gave me the answers that I needed. This is one of the areas where I think it's going to be really helpful for us to have some background experience. Now, if you don't know PowerShell, then ChatGPT generating PowerShell for you and you just blindly running it isn't probably a great combo, because you won't know if it's really doing what you asked it to do. You will still need some PowerShell programming experience, but you can go from no lines of code to 20 lines of code in about 18 seconds, and then continue to refine your process and refine what that code's going to do you until you meet whatever the challenge is that you're trying to solve. One more thing here, just to finish up, is I've been using ChatGPT to help my customers and to generate summary information. A friend of mine works for a big manufacturing company here in Rhode Island in the United States where I live. And he said, hey, Josh, do you know about this paper recently published by Project Zero, which is the Google project to do really high quality, really remarkable security research? This paper published by Seth Jenkins, exploiting null-D references in the Linux kernel. My friend called me up and he said, Josh, what do you know about this? And I said, I know what that is, but I haven't read this paper yet. I know very little about it. Well, I need some results pretty quickly. I got a whole bunch of stuff going on. How do I get a review of this? Is there some way I can summarize it? One option using ChatGPT is to say, summarize this paper for me. And we've seen a lot of really good use of that. One thing that I find really tedious is watching YouTube videos. When I'm trying to understand something and there's a YouTube video that's an hour and a half long, even at 2x speed, I don't want to waste 45 minutes watching this entire video and sound effects, and I don't want to do that. Using ChatGPT, though, we can pull in the automatic closed captioning, and ChatGPT can summarize those results. This is a really powerful feature in a lot of these LLMs now, where we can take any text-based content like an article and get a summary for it. What's even better is that you can give it a style to work from, and you can tell the AI to write your summary using this style. So for this example, I said to my friend, all right, you're going to owe me on this one because I'm going to help you big time. I'm going to get you a review that's going to be appropriate for a CISO, that's written in a style that you've used before, and I'm going to get it to you in 15 minutes. What I did was I went to ChatGPT and I said, analyze the writing style in the sample inside triple quotes below and call it Josh style, or whatever you want to call that. And this is just a report that I wrote for another customer very informally, because that's what the ask was, okay? Use this as the writing style. And then once the AI consumes that style and understands it, then I said, next, review the technical analysis of the Linux kernel vulnerabilities in this paper. Summarize the results in no more than 100 words using Josh style. Now, you could have easily said summarize in 100 words, but it's going to summarize in somebody else's writing style. But if you give it your sample to learn from, the AI will use the writing in your own style. Now, to be fair, I didn't really care for the exact writing output here. I did change a little bit of the language here, but it only took me a couple of minutes. And now I've got my 100-word response. That's a summary. I sent it to my friend. He responded to his CISO. And now I have a favor in the bank. I got a solid that I can pull out, whenever I need something from my friend. There are a lot of things that we can do with these tools. And I think the most exciting part about it is that the best use cases we haven't even figured out yet. And I think that that's going to be something that's going to be really enticing, something that's going to keep people engaged and keep kind of helping us leapfrog what we used to be able to do without AI at least from a time consideration going forward. Now, I'm running out of my time here, but briefly, some final tips on using ChatGPT. My first tip is this: always comply with your employer rules. If your employer says no AI platforms, then no work AI platforms. Don't do that, okay? However, like all good professionals, we have our work-based professional development time, and then we have our personal professional development time as well. It's probably a good idea to spend some time experimenting with ChatGPT and other AIs, other large language models, to see what can I do with this. So when the need arises, maybe you already have some experience with that. Now, for good reason, some companies are banning AI altogether. Samsung had a data leak in ChatGPT, so they banned that as of May 1st and May 2nd here. So this is going to be an ongoing kind of challenge for organizations, and we're going to see a lot of reactions of, I'm just going to ban AI for my organization. But as an individual contributor, as somebody wanted to promote your own career and your own skill set, it's probably a good idea to spend some time. There's even Android and iOS apps for ChatGPT now. You don't have to pay for the advanced services for ChatGPT. Even if you're just doing something like waiting for, picking up your kids, or you got, 10 minutes of downtime or something, experimenting is a good idea just to start building some familiarity. Always think about the privacy implications. If OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT, get breached, what does that mean? So for me here, any of the content that I upload in my ChatGPT sessions has already been sanitized by me. Okay? I know that I'm accepting a risk by putting that information there. You can purge it, but that doesn't guarantee that it's gone off of the servers. Recognize that there's always going to be some risk with sharing information with a third party. Okay? I hope you're in agreement with me when I say that ChatGPT is not a replacement for human analysis. I don't feel threatened by AI, at least today, for my own particular needs, okay? I will use ChatGPT and other AIs as an accelerator to allow me to do more, to accomplish more, to deliver my customers better results, to be able to refine my writing and to do a lot more creative tasks. But I know that my own experience, my ability to look at code, my ability to conduct an effective incident response is not going to be replaced by AI, at least today, okay? So my concern today is not there yet. Finally, practice prompt engineering, using some of the resources here to refine your results, and then make sure you watch for errors and AI hallucinations. In my SANS 504 class, we always use these visual association maps. So our summary here today, we looked at 4 cases of how we could apply using a tool like ChatGPT to accelerate incident response. We looked at an example of summarizing code, decoding shellcode using iterative prompting. We looked at deobfuscating attacker code, the PHP example. ChatGPT didn't get it quite right, but good enough for me to get started with. We generated some code using AI, ChatGPT, to be able to generate some PowerShell code for us. And then we generated some summary information to satisfy a need for an executive that says, I want a summary of this in your writing style by the end of the day. And ChatGPT can help us with a lot of that as well. We talked about some core terminology, LLM, natural language processing, of course, is the technology that is empowering a lot of what's going on with generative AI systems. We talked about some essential GPT, hallucinations, training AI with samples, and then some recommendations for prompt engineering. And then finally, we talked about some tips for using ChatGPT. So I like to introduce myself at the end of these things. My name is Joshua Wright. I'm a faculty fellow for the SANS Institute. I wrote the SANS Sec 504 class. Here's my email address, Twitter, Instagram. You can find out more about my SANS class at sans.org/sec504. And Brad, I would love to be able to answer any questions in any of the time we have remaining here today.
Josh, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I know you came in a pinch. knocked it out of the park. Thank you very much for your time today. So many things that I would love to ask you about. Don't have a ton of time, but one of the things I know personally, a couple of webinars I've given recently around the US Cyber Games program specifically, folks are asking all the time about, the implications of AI, and they're hearing all this about ChatGPT and what does that mean for careers in the future. So certainly appreciate a lot of what you shared around how these tools can really augment, human talent and the need that organizations will have for humans to still perform work alongside these kinds of large language models.
Thank you.
I will ask you one question if you don't mind. There was some questions that came in the chat a little bit about the SEC 504 class. I know that was your authorship, so would love to just hear, what are some of your favorite sections of the class, and who's that SEC 504 really appropriate for?
Yeah, so thank you for that. Whoever asked that question, please reach out and I will PayPal you later for that. I wrote SEC 504 to try to reach out to a lot of audiences. I tell people that I'm a professional hacker and an accidental educator, but I've been teaching for SANS for almost 20 years now. And the thing that I'm most excited about in SEC 504 is the way we help people to learn. And, I've spent a lot of time writing custom learning tools, frameworks, trying to get people past fear, uncertainty, and doubt of engaging in the command line or reading code or things that are tough for a lot of audiences. So the thing that I love most about it is just being able to reach out to a lot of people, whether it's using visuals or visual learning tools or text-based tools or anything like that. So the audience, I think, is anybody that's doing incident response, and that's certainly people like detection engineers, SOC analysts, anybody that has to do incident response work for private businesses. But really, I think years ago, there's a paper written called Improving the Security of Your Site by Breaking Into It by Dan Farmer and Vitsa Venema. It was a landmark paper for me. It changed my life. And I really believe in the power of being better at defense by understanding offense. And I think that's it's most appropriate for anybody who is interested in learning the offense side.
Very cool. I love it. I'm sure many of our students on today's call, our younger cyber athletes, appreciated all of your tips on writing ChatGPT prompts, and those with some more technical chops really appreciated all of your case studies. And just want to thank you for your time this afternoon, for your support of the program. And in general, SANS has been a wonderful partner of the US Cyber Games. We are very fortunate to receive some vouchers for various certification, coursework, and exams. So Joshua, thank you very much. Have a wonderful afternoon. If you wouldn't mind ending your screen share, I think wonderful. Thank you. We're going to jump to a quick commercial, and then we will welcome in our movers and shakers panel. All righty, folks. Excuse me. Welcome back. Can we just give a round of applause to the team on the back end of today's US Cyber Open kickoff event? It has been phenomenal to watch all of the communications going on, making sure that we have our commercials lined up. All of our speakers are ready to go. I couldn't be more fortunate to work with such a phenomenal group here at the Play Cyber team. So thank you for helping support such a successful event. And we are going to be moving into our next presentation. A little bit of a riff on the agenda. Those of you that are watching Brella closely, if you're disappointed you didn't get to spend 15 minutes with me talking all about the season 3 US Cyber Games timeline, I apologize. Hopefully you've seen enough of my blonde hair and heard enough of my voice. I will be wrapping things up today, and depending on timing, I might go through a little bit of the timeline later on. But with that, we have our first panel of the day, which is exciting. And I have the pleasure of welcoming in 4 phenomenal women for our Movers and Shakers panel. That will be moderated by Katia Murray with Leidos. I will let Katia introduce herself. And Katia will be joined by 3 young women that are making waves. And they're here to talk about their journeys into cybersecurity, all the cool things they've done and are doing, and what they hope to do. So with that, Katia, Carissa, Weja, and Annabelle, I would love to welcome you onto the stage. And let's get this panel off. Weja, good afternoon. Hi, Carissa, Annabelle, and Katia. Wonderful. Excellent. So Katia, I will hand it over to you if you want to do a couple of introductions and take it away. I will fade into the background.
All right. Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it. So hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Katia Murray. I'm a cyber lead at Leidos under our intelligence group. I'm really excited. I was actually talking to the girls before we started this. I was going to keep my intro short because I really want to really talk about them and all the work that they've been doing and all the creative things they've been doing. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Starting with you, Weja, if you'd like a quick intro, please.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Weja Yan, and I am the PICO CTF ambassador. I'm also a student at Carnegie Mellon University studying information security.
Excellent. And Annabelle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Annabelle Klosterman. I'm currently a cybersecurity engineer. I'm also the director for the Cyber Community Club. I'm a student at Dakota State University.
Awesome. And Carissa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carissa Kim. I'm the student lead director for K-12 Cyber Talk, and I'm also a student at UC Berkeley.
Awesome. Thanks, ladies. Great. So I kind of want to start off with a question for the group. And Weja, I'll put it to you first, but I'll kind of go around. Can you tell us about an experience you had or moment that made you feel like cyber was the field for you?
Yeah, it was definitely going to my first conference and seeing how welcoming everybody was. Just going into my first B-Sides ever, I just have a bunch of people over there and greeted by a lot of people. As someone who's new entering into the field, I just feel it feels really refreshing and welcoming by the community. So that's the moment I decided that I should stay in this field. And it's also the same group of people keep me motivated through like going to navigating this field. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And Annabelle, same question to you. So is there a moment or an experience you had that you're like, yes, cyber is where I need to be?
Absolutely. That's a great question. For me, I didn't have one specific moment or experience that like, hey, I need to be in the cybersecurity field. For me, it was a collection of various different experiences and skills that I've learned. So in high school, competing in different kind of competitions, going to different Gen Cyber camps, things like that made me realize this isn't just a one-off experience that I'm having, but it's more sharing what kind of community is within cybersecurity and what are some of the challenges. So it's not just one specific experience, but the whole experience as a whole.
And Carissa, for you, is there a moment or experience that you were like, yep, I'm going to do cyber. This is where I want to be?
It's actually crazy because I genuinely thought before high school, like I thought I wanted to do nothing with computers. And I attended my very first Cyber Patriot summer camp before I entered into high school. And I realized like I was so shocked by how easy it was to find vulnerabilities and how easy it is to secure devices. And one thing led to another where I started competing in different competitions, Cyber Patriot competitions, CTFs, and I just realized that all of that was so fascinating, so much fun, and I just wanted to keep engaging in that. And I think that was where I started with.
Awesome. Okay, so Wasia, we were talking about the importance of engaging K through 12, which I think everyone's going to say, we want to start them early to get them exposed to STEM, to get them excited. Based on your experience as a PICO CTF ambassador, what are your thoughts on the importance around early education in cyber for K through 12? And do you have any ideas on how teachers might help inspire their students to get into cybersecurity?
No, yeah, that's a great question. And absolutely, I think we should start teaching kids cybersecurity early on. I actually met one of I help students with learning cybersecurity using PICO CTF platform. And I was at a show at one time. I was at a museum helping out at one time for PICO CTF. And I bumped into this student in third grade. And I just see that kind of excitement in his eyes and the kind of like persistence just in third grade on doing an entire PICO game, in which it's a gamified version of PICO CTF for an entire day. And at that time, I just think, wow, this is something that we can really do for kids, and we can bring education to the younger audiences.
Wow, that's awesome. And in third grade already, you saw the excitement from him and it moved you. Chris, I kind of same track, because I know you're involved with the K through 12. I know you're helping to direct the K through 12 cyber, and you're doing web shows, which is pretty neat. I actually checked out a few myself. Can you talk more about the K-12 cyber, and is there like a favorite episode you have? And if so, why should we watch it?
Of course. So as you know, I think cybersecurity is an evolving field. Technology is so dependent. And so what K-12 Cyber Talk is, it's an educational platform dedicated to raising awareness about cybersecurity amongst K-12 students, or it can be honestly like anyone. And so our team produces webcasts to engage and educate learners how to stay safe online and the importance of cybersecurity. And so I honestly highly recommend it. It's also super interactive too, because we'll go through sort of like hands-on challenges, and we can assist with students to actually check out those challenges, watch through the shows, and learn so much. And I think if I were to choose like a favorite episode, I think that's so difficult because I feel like all the shows are the best. But I think if I had to choose one of my favorites was the 13th show with Dr. Melissa Dark. She's honestly phenomenal. She talked about like ethical hacking and sort of understanding the hacker mindset. And honestly, I recommend anyone to watch this episode since it offers very valuable insight to the world of ethical hacking and how it plays a crucial role in identifying vulnerabilities and strengthening cybersecurity defenses.
Awesome. Have you taken ethical hacking by any chance?
Oh, I actually have taken an ethical hacking course. It was so fun.
Myself as well. And about for you, we're here at the Cyber Games and talking about capture the flags and hackathon. We just talked about ethical hacking. I think a lot of the questions is, as we do a lot of these hackathons and events, you gain a lot of skills and experience. Can you talk about, especially your experience, how that applies to real world? How can you bring the skills and what you're learning from some of these competitions to some real world scenarios?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a good variety of different kinds of cyber competitions that are out there. CTFs, red team, blue team type of competitions. But from my experiences competing in high school and again now into college, there's a lot of different skills that I've been able to pick up that I've been able to use in real world applications at various points of jobs. CTFs, for example, I was able to learn quite a lot about reverse engineering, exploit dev sort of thing, BinX. And I was able to use that at one of my internships that I had over the last summer, just learning some of those skills that I was able to practice and use in a competition, but then see that evolve into real world work and how that applies and the impact that I can make within an organization. And then some of those other competitions, like a blue team, red team type of competition, that I've been able just to use some of those skills in defending secure networks. and then seeing what that looks like inside of an actual business and actual organization, and seeing exactly where those knowledge and skills I've learned can apply to those companies. It's been tremendous to see that kind of experience. And like, hey, this isn't just a game. This isn't just for fun, but you can also make like an actual real world impact. So that's been really cool for me to see how some of these skills that we're learning through these different competitions, especially through the US Cyber Games, can really apply to those real world applications.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off of that. Working at Leidos, that's some of the work I've done. It's interesting when you think it's a lot of fun for you, and you're like, this is great, but then realizing that it can help, keep things safe and help with the airports and hospitals and stuff. So it's pretty cool how you can apply that. So this one's for the group. As we're talking about competitions and CTFs, for you guys, what advice would you give someone to get prepared? I know myself, I always kind of say, just get started. I think when I kind of did it, it was just like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I just started. What would you guys, anyone can start, but what kind of advice would you give to someone trying to get involved with a CTF or how to get prepared?
I can start us off. So when an advice I would give to people is to get with the community and play a team, kind of in a team environment from the if you're playing for the first time, because in the team setting, you can help each other out. And I have an experience where I competed in a team where I didn't know how to solve one problem, but when I communicated the ways I tried to solve this problem, another teammate was able to pick up the kind of procedures that I tried, and all together we were able to solve a flag as a group. So I think that kind of camaraderie that we were able to build from solving a challenge is precious.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of what we just said, I think community is one of the biggest things that has been very valuable for me to learn, especially throughout these competitions. Like some of these, especially CTFs, can be very individual based of what kind of skills can an individual learn. But for me, what makes it also fun is collaborating with others and learning the way that they approach some kind of problem or challenge, especially in this, is going to be very valuable. So that's why I definitely recommend, because a lot of times when I'm approaching a CTF problem or a challenge, I can run into a lot of brick walls, get very frustrated, go bananas, and just not know exactly where to go. But then I can reach out to some of my friends or other people I know, like, all right, how did you approach this problem? How can you solve this? So definitely rely on the people around you. Get some friends, find some communities to join, and make it fun.
Awesome. Carissa?
I would also honestly say the same thing, just like start off with the
Yeah.
fundamentals, just like building like cybersecurity information. And then also I agree with community and like finding mentors. I feel like that has honestly helped me, and don't like be afraid to ask, because I remember there's times where I'm just like so scared to ask questions, but I think like honestly I just still ask them, even though I genuinely thought that they're just dumb questions. But there's no such thing as dumb questions. You can just ask ahead, and everyone there in the cybersecurity community are all super welcoming and would love to help you start. So just ask and don't be afraid.
Yeah, that's such a good one, because I will tell you that everyone wants you to ask questions. So you're right, there is no dumb one. We want to help each other and we want to help you learn. So we want you to ask questions. So that's a really good one. Have you guys ever had a moment? I call this, I wish I had done this moment. I still have one from like 10 years ago of a box that I was trying to get like 12 boxes, and I was pen testing. I was like, oh, where's this box? It still haunts me today. But have you ever had one where you were in a CTF or a hackathon or a moment like that, and you kind of look back and like maybe it didn't work out, like you didn't have a skill or you failed? Have you ever had those moments where you kind of left and you think about it and there's lessons learned, and maybe, how did you move from that? You guys have any experiences like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's one time I feel like, this is the way I solved it. I was able to try different kind of like ways, but I wasn't able to solve the flag, to find the flag. So after the competition, when we were reviewing the solution as a team, so our captain was able to point out, oh, this is the way how he solved it. And then there's this lightning moment to me. Wow, this is how you can solve that. And to me, that's more of a lessons learned moment than a failure, if you were to put it that way. So I was able to take that on and taking it to my next competition. And I learned something new from that.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I would say one of the things that I've learned, especially from competing in various competitions, is first preparation and preparing for whatever kind of competition. So trying to figure out and familiarize yourself with what kind of competition you're competing in, especially if it's, for example, a defensive type of competition. Familiarizing yourself with the environment, different things you could encounter. If it's a CTF, familiarizing yourself with different types of categories or challenges you could be potentially approaching. And then another thing is just being open-minded and not pigeonholing yourself into one specific direction you're going, especially for CTF challenges. It's easy to find yourself going down rabbit holes and just finding some trail and you could be completely off. But sometimes you just need to take a step back and realize what's going on. And then really quickly, the third thing, going back to the whole community and making it more fun. Sometimes you just need to slow down, relax a little bit, maybe chill with your friends a little bit, have some snacks, have some bananas, have some apples, some fruit, chill out a little bit, and then pick it back up and get back into it. And that can reframe your entire perspective. So those are the three things that I found very helpful in various competitions.
Yeah, I love it. I thought you were going to say phone a friend, because that's what the older you get, you're like, I'm just going to call for help.
Right. I mean, that works too. That works too.
No, but I think that, kind of what you said, that it's really good, because it's really sometimes it's mindset. Take a minute, say, what do I know? What skills do I have? And kind of rework the problem. I think it's really how we do it in the real world, and kind of going through. Carissa, maybe this one's for you, and this is for everybody, but when you look for inspiration, continue learning, do you have ideas or thoughts about where are you looking to keep learning and to keep going as you're growing in your career?
Right. So I think it's crazy how big cybersecurity is growing. And I think I've consistently have found inspiration through just other people, other conferences, other connections, like social media platforms, like even Twitter's, like cybersecurity is really big on Twitter as well too. I think there's just genuinely a lot of platforms and online communities where professionals sort of share their experiences and insights, as well as like just different conferences and workshops, and even like this stream right now. Like I think there's so many different opportunities for people to continue learning and just, yeah.
No, awesome. Annabelle, how about yourself? As you're doing this, and especially as you're in competitions, and is there anywhere you're looking for continuous learning, and how are you doing that?
Yeah, a big part of that keeps me motivated and inspired to keep learning is going back to the impact that I'm making, whether it's at a company, whether it's like, all right, I need to learn some of these skills or get through some of these challenges, figure these out because I know the valuable skills and knowledge I'm learning from those things. So that's probably how I say I stay motivated and inspired, is just figuring out, all right, what kind of impact can I make? How am I going to benefit other people from these different skills and knowledge I'm learning from?
Awesome. And Waja, what about yourself? Is there anything you're looking for inspiration, continue learning?
Definitely. I would also second both Carissa and Annabelle on the community aspect. Conferences are a great place to get motivation and inspiration from, and also Twitter and now Mastodon are two really good social media platforms. Sometimes LinkedIn too. And I think just immerse yourself in those different kind of like communities will you be able to keep inspired and grow.
Okay, awesome. And then you guys, this question's probably more for me, because you guys are really early in your career, but think about this. What kind of advice do you wish you received early on? Like, is there anything, you guys are still kind of hitting the momentum and hitting your strides. I mean, you guys are moving and shaking, as it's called, the Movers and Shakers panel, but is there anything where sometimes you're like, I wish I had that advice a little bit early, or are you still kind of like, I'm good? Is there any thoughts around that?
I definitely have one. So I think I'm just so glad that all of us here, like, I think women representation is amazing. And I think like, especially when I had a lot of like cybersecurity related competitions, I'd be the only girl on my team. And I think I would sometimes have like imposter syndrome, where I would just be like, oh, I'm not good enough because I guess I'm just a girl. And I just wish that I sort of never had those thoughts in my head. And I honestly just like, to anyone, just don't let anything stop you, and like don't be afraid to like ask questions, of course. I think just those two main things I wish I could have sort of have the confidence to just think like, oh, you're good, Carissa, you can do this. But I think, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Anybody else?
Yeah, just to piggyback off what she said, like I definitely agree with her. Like sometimes having confidence and just going for it is the best way to go with it. But for me, especially within the cybersecurity community and what I found so far, one of the biggest things I've learned and has been valuable to me is the networking piece of it. Like I knew all of the three ladies on this panel just even before we got all put together on this panel, but it's because I've been able to network, and whether it's through competitions we've competed in, whether it's going through different conferences, you never know where you'll end up later on in your career and where other people are going to end up as well, and especially what other knowledge and experiences others have. So the more people you know and network with, the more you'll be able to leverage some of those individuals that you know and also learn from. So that's one of the biggest pieces that I've learned throughout my career.
Yeah, I love it. And Wasia, I want to give you an opportunity as well.
Definitely. Thank you. I think one thing I've learned was, again, the community aspect and being able to give back after you gain help from other people. I think being able to give back has taught me also a lot. Just being able to see the excitement on the people I helped face, that's really exciting for me. And I also learn from teaching others as well.
Awesome. And I think, just talking to you guys, I'm learning a lot. I think you guys all hit on key things, right? So it's really that idea of just talking to folks and listening to them and seeing what they're doing and kind of getting their insights. And I think you guys have hit on absolutely everything. So if I had advice for myself, it's like, I wish I had pieces of what you guys are doing. Like, can I be more like the three of you? So keep it up. I think we're going to wrap it up. But a quick fun question. If you had a chance, red team or blue team, what would you guys choose? Anybody got a favorite? No, both.
I'd personally go with blue team all the way.
Okay. Anybody
I'm
else?
with red team.
Yeah.
And I think I'll just go with both. I feel like you need both teams for that dynamic challenges to see.
Love it. I love it. All right. And I think with that, I think Brad's gonna step back in.
Katia, Wasia, Annabelle, Carissa, phenomenal job. I love the smiles. I'm so proud of you guys. Thank you so much for being part of our day today. Hopefully you're just as proud of yourselves, all of the wonderful work you're doing. Katia, great questions. Really enjoyed hearing from all of you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your support of the program. Congratulations on all of your hard work. Can't wait to see where you go. Keep moving and shaking, and you all have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
And with that, we will go ahead and transition. We have just a few more sessions lined up for you guys this afternoon. And it is my pleasure for this next round to introduce two gentlemen. You've likely heard of both of them. We have Neil Weiler, aka Grifter, in the hacker community. Grifter is a global lead of active threat assessments at IBM X-Force. And Grifter will be joined by Bart Stump, senior systems engineer at NetWitness. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. Appreciate your time. Looking forward to your session. Tell these people all about some knocks.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, we'll roll right into it. Bart, you want to share?
Yeah. Let me get her kicked off here. Maybe. We're going to give it all away. There you go. Good?
We're good.
Sweet.
All right, so I guess first things first, we'll introduce ourselves. So hi, my name is Neil Weiler. In the information security community, I'm better known as Grifter. By day, I'm the global lead of active threat assessments for IBM X-Force. So I run our threat hunting program. And by night, I run the technical operations for the Black Hat security briefings. And I've been doing that, I think, I don't know, it's the 21st or 22nd year this summer. So a long time. And I'm also one of the department leads or main folks who run DEF CON, which you're probably also familiar with. So I run all the contests and events at DEF CON.
I am Bart Stump. I do a lot of that, and we always joke that he has a lot longer list, so we let him go first to get it out of the way. I've been doing Black Hat now at about 15 years. DEF CON Goon for about 10. I actually just said that I'm done so that I can go enjoy it. So here in the local community, done a lot with the hackerspace, SE by day for NetWitness, all kinds of stuff. Been around a little while, and been doing this now for quite some time. get rolling.
So yeah, so the like I said, I've been doing the NOC and running the technical operations for Black Hat for over 2 decades now. I was 23 when they handed over the network to me, which sounds crazy to me now to think that they were just like, here, you can have this. And this is what the network looked like at Black Hat in these 2 photos here. So that's my buddy Deadhead on the left, and my buddy Com4 on the right. We had a Cisco 2600 router. We had some, you can see these little silver Netgear switches sitting on top of that router on the right. A couple of 8-port switches, and then just honestly, these Cisco access points that were Orinoco cards plugged into them. You'd plug an antenna into it. You can see the antenna just above it, the white bundle there, and it was just a wire, and we taped them to the walls. So the network infrastructure was significantly smaller, though the show was smaller at the time at only about 1,200 to 1,400 attendees, I think, when I started. And now today we're between 20,000 to 25,000 attendees at the show. So obviously we had to scale. The team for that first year that I did it was literally me and 2 of my friends. They told me I could bring a team of folks to help me. That was not enough, but we still got it done. And then the team for USA last year looks like this. So obviously the show grew. So the team it takes to put on the technical operations at Black Hat grew as well. Bart and I bring probably about 15 of our closest friends with us who come, and they take time off from work and volunteer their time to come and help out in the NOC. Somehow we have made the task of running a network operations center and security operations center for Black Hat into something cool enough that people want to take off time from work to do it. But then we also about 7 years ago started partnering with some vendors, and we'll get into that in a moment. But and then those vendors that we partner with, they send their best and brightest for each one of those partners. And I think we talk about the partners now. So I'll tell you how that grew.
So these are the existing partners today, and who we work with currently. We've kind of worked with different people. One thing that we try to point out is that they're very intentionally called partners. These are not sponsors. We do not, nobody sponsors the NOC to get their equipment in there and use it that way. Grifter, myself, and Steve Fink, who's our principal architect, actually work through basically designing what we need and selecting vendors that way. So this is definitely a design network that's run with a purpose. It's not whoever will give us the most money or whoever can fit in there, because we've had plenty of offers that way. So these are the main partners right now. Again, that's switched a little bit, but let's talk about kind of what an architecture here looks like. So this is just a quick architecture of what we actually did in Singapore that we actually just got back from. It's only been like 2 weeks now, I want to say, not too long ago. So this is what it looked like again in Singapore. We are very much of the mindset of keep it simple, stupid. It's been something that we've done for a long time that, again, we've learned a lot of lessons from. We've made a lot of mistakes to the point of that first slide, and this is the ultimatum of those mistakes, I would say, over a couple of decades. So from the way that Grifter talked about it to even some of my early days, we were rolling SOCRIS boxes and using OpenBSD and running scripts for PF to put in every classroom and trying to run unify access points and all kinds of different stuff. And to his point, the scale just got to be unmanageable, untenable for what we were doing, the amount of people that we had and the amount of people that we had to support from a show perspective. And this is, again, kind of what it's evolved into over the years, from bringing in those vendors, providing what we need to as far as visualization, investigation, stability. We'll talk a little bit about, coming up here in a few slides, kind of what we've come from and what our main goals are of the NOC. But this is a quick peek into kind of what a general network looks like for most of our shows. For the most part, they kind of fall into the same line. The international shows are obviously a little bit different than our Las Vegas show, which is where we have 20 to 25,000 people. The equipment's just much bigger, a lot more bandwidth that we handle, and a lot more traffic. So
yeah, just more of everything. And I think that's the thing that, like, pointing out, like, this architecture here is for the Singapore show that we just got back from. But and that show is probably, I think it was 4,000 people this year, so 3,000 to 4,000 folks on the network there, and this is what we brought, and it is essentially just a scaled down version of what we bring to the US show. Again, the US show is just more. We have like 2 10 gig circuits at the US show. We've got significantly more access points, obviously, because we're covering it, a lot more switches going out. And I think that's an important thing to point out maybe at this point, is that we call it a NOC instead of a SOC, because we are responsible for the network architecture and the deployment of the network infrastructure as well. When you think about a SOC, that's just involving security, and we do all that security stuff as well. But we're out there deploying our own equipment, and Bart and I do that for a reason. Like, one is that we're just control freaks, right? Like, we want to know this is our equipment, and we've done this to it, and we set the configs up this way, and it's going to communicate this way. But it's also so it allows us to have the ability to do any kind of mitigation if we need to, right? If we see an attack on something or an individual or part of that infrastructure, that we can respond to it rather than having to go through the venue. So like when we arrive on site in Las Vegas at Mandalay Bay, we replace every router, every switch, every firewall, every access point, all of it. We don't use any of their equipment. It's all stuff that we bring in ourselves. And a lot of that is brought in with, by those partners. And we've been lucky enough that when we're partnering with them, that we were able to say, man, it would be really nice to use this to like solve this problem we have, or really nice to use that. And as we've approached different vendors and said, hey, would you be interested in having us, like use your equipment in the NOC? We'll put your name in the program and you'll be up on the website as like our partner for whatever thing it is, solution that we're using it for. And so far, everyone has said yes, which has been really great for us. We're spoiled, but that's been really nice. It allows us to not only build, the infrastructure that we want, but also to secure it using like the top of the line gear without it costing us a fortune.
So again, we set up this environment in about a week. Not even that, I guess, as far as an enterprise environment that we set up in a few days for an event that runs about a week. So we need to be able to visualize what's going on the network, understand what's happening, investigate if there is a problem, see if there's anything happening. Registration is kind of our crown jewels, if you will. And that is what we work to protect. And all of those tools provide something that we come in with. They're all deployed for a reason. Again, we're trying to keep it as simple as possible so that we can actually see this data. And this is kind of the culmination of a lot of that. So if you've ever been to one of the Black Hat shows and come in and seen the NOC, it is open to the public now. We've kind of turned that into a fishbowl, if you will. I don't know, 7 years ago. Come in, see us, see all these dashboards. These are actual live data that we'll display up there. Stuff that we use to kind of visualize, again, what's happening and understand that the network is A, stable, and B, secure. And again, let me see if I'm going to go back again and start that. And you can talk about OIP again really quick if you want, Grifter.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, you see all these shiny dashboards, and they are shiny, right? But they are informative. Like we used to be like, oh, everything's a little pew chart, and it's this or that, and pie charts and all that things. But some of this is actually useful. On the bottom right, he's talking about OIP, which is really just a visual. It's an open source project. It allows us a quick visualization of what's going on the most active nodes on the network, essentially. So whatever hosts are on there that are communicating the most, you see the green traffic or that was flowing from point to point there. What is TCP? The red is UDP, white is ICMP. And we see like who's chatty. And the more traffic that they're passing, the brighter that will get, and the larger those streams will look. And that gives us a quick indication of what's going on in different points of the network, right? If we need to, potentially like add additional access points somewhere because it's getting saturated, or there's somebody on there who's scanning the entire network, and we can just see it quickly because when they start scanning, that ICMP traffic looks like basically fireworks. It looks like a starburst of white traffic going out to a bunch of other hosts. So they are shiny and colorful and all that, but they actually are useful. We really do use the things that are on there.
Very useful. And a couple more just to again show, this is a Palo Alto dashboard that kind of shows application usage, different things that we can see if there's something going too crazy. But these are actually interesting that we've got from Meraki the last couple of shows, that they provide heat maps across with the wireless. That's what the top is, where you can see, and we can kind of see this was in Singapore, and I believe that kind of bottom blob is the show floor. So the expo hall, when that kind of opened up, you could see just kind of where general traffic is. This isn't just off people based connected to wireless. That does passive wireless and Bluetooth. So if you have Bluetooth or wireless enabled and any beacons going out, we'll see that and just kind of heat map it. The one at the bottom here, the other map, is actually interesting. This is Marina Bay Sands. You can see the new stadium across the freeway there, but you can see a whole bunch of dots.
Mandalay Bay.
What did I say? Marina Bay Sands?
Marina Bay Sands, yeah.
I mean, it gets me every time. Mandalay Bay, sorry. Marina Bay Sands is Singapore. So you can see the dots here that are actually, so we started using iPads for registration, and we put MDM on all of those devices. There were some that were used for vendors as well, for like lead generation and that kind of stuff. But we actually had MDM that would track location. So if one was lost, and you could see there's one all the way out there at the pool. So it was kind of funny just to kind of watch this kind of stuff and see where people are, how traffic works. And again, this is all just kind of a piece of the picture. It's not necessarily anything that a heat map would give you great information, but it would give you information that there may be something wrong with an AP, or why so many people are over here, that we can't see a specific area. Same with OIP and some of the things there. They're all kind of quick visualization, quick tools to understand if we need to dig in more and understand more about something that's going on in the network. So as much as I've always kind of laughed about dashboards, they've become a little bit more of our life. And as much as we're in and out of the NOC having to run things, it's certainly become a little more useful to have some good visualizations. So we always pull stats after every show and kind of walk through different things, different types of traffic that we saw. We give a debrief at the end of each show, talk about what we saw on the network. And these are a few things, just kind of wanted to walk through and again, give a quick understanding. On the right here, this is Black Hat Asia, again, that just ended. And on the left here, this is actually Black Hat USA 2022. So those top bar graphs you can see are actually DNS requests from Umbrella. So we've got some historical data there. It's interesting to kind of see, obviously we don't have a 2020 or a 2021 in Asia because of COVID. And then obviously Vegas coming up here in a couple of months. You can see the trending data. It's always interesting to base that just off of DNS. Obviously, how many requests, how many people are there, and kind of watch that. So we track this historically. The malicious DNS request, this is always interesting, and we haven't quite said it yet, but the real conundrum, if you will, with the Black Hat NOC is that we're trying to find the needle in the needle stack, is the term that we use a lot here. Grifter kind of coined that, and it's one of those that it's really intriguing because everything's bad. You have a whole lot of classes that are learning how to be attackers, some red team classes, blue team that they're actually throwing those attacks out and trying to stop them. We have all of these labs up at the cloud. A lot of classes are doing that now. So we have to be able to allow those things to flow, to not destroy someone's demo on stage, not to destroy a lab in a training classroom, or anything else like that. So as you can see, most of this stuff is something that would send a SOC through the roof. People would be working overnight. People would be trying to figure out what's going on and kind of all hands on deck. As to us, this is just Tuesday, right? So it's very interesting to kind of understand and go through and make sure that we're looking for what the actual bad is. Over on the right, a couple other things here, some quick apps and VPN types that we got out of Singapore. The interesting thing out of the apps is that in our top 10, you see that TikTok made it. One of the first times that we've seen something like that kind of reach up. TikTok's going to climb the fence, we believe. It's going crazy and there's tons of traffic there. I haven't installed it, so I'm not helping with those numbers. Grifter's your guy as far as that goes. And then you can see all the different VPN types. Again, we're just nerds. we're just nerds, love data, pull all this together. And it's again, just a little bit of what we see. On the bottom left is a packet decoder from NetWitness, what we gather. Again, just to see during the Vegas show, we captured 32 billion packets. So lots of data, lots of stuff to dig through, and lots of stuff to kind of keep track of, if you will.
So, I mean, you saw the first couple of pictures there. We went from a Cisco 2600 router and some Netgear switches and Cisco access points to what we have today and what we just walked through. So I'll talk a little bit about like the evolution of the NOC and how we got to that place. So initially, the main goal of the NOC is network stability, right? Like where we want to make sure that the network is available for folks to use, whether that's in a training class. Now that labs are primarily done in the cloud, like it used to be that trainers would bring servers with them and they would have their class connect to them, over a LAN, but that's just not how it's done anymore. Now everything is hosted in, some cloud service, and they need a stable network to do that. So network stability is huge. That's our first priority. After that comes security, honestly. And so we, very early on, we were able to achieve stability. Like we got a nice stable network, started doing some more things to secure the attendees, not just on the network, but from each other. So we started segmenting classrooms and things. Initially, the network at Black Hat was flat. So you'd have like an offensive class see the defensive class next door, and they'd be like, let's attack those guys, right? Because they learned something new and they just start firing attacks at each other. And so it was like, all right, we've got to segment everybody off from each other. And then once we've got everybody, host isolated into little buckets or whatever, what do we want to do now? And one of the things was that we're constantly being told in the early years, right? The early 2000s and stuff, that Black Hat and like the DEF CON networks are like the most hostile networks in the world, right? Like there's constant attacks, constant malware stuff going on, all the things. And we said, great, is that true? Like, is that actually real, or is that just something that reporters like to say? And so we decided to go in there and see if it was accurate. And so we started doing hunting on the network. In order to do that, we started collecting logs from all the different devices that we had deployed, as well as full packet capture. So we do capture every packet that flies across the Black Hat network, and we write it to disk, so that if we see some type of attack going on or something that's interesting, we can rebuild that attack and rip it apart. Or if there's something that looks like malware, we can pull that out and drop it into a sandbox and see if that how that malware functions. Is it something that we already know about, or is it something that's new that's behaving like malware, that kind of thing. So we went with that full packet capture and all that, centralized logs, and all of that, and said, well, let's start hunting through this to find what's actually bad. Bart mentioned before, like we're searching for a needle in a needle stack. How do you find what's actually bad when all of the traffic is bad? Obviously, in this situation, like a Black Hat network, we can't alert on something that's bad. We would just be buried by alerts. So our only option is to do threat hunting. And so we were forced to do threat hunting, years and years ago. We've been hunting in the NOC for over a decade at this point. And we do find interesting things, but we've got to look for those things that trigger something that says like, this isn't normal, or this looks like it's targeted attack. And then we start ripping those things apart. After looking at malware, every show, there's always some new malware samples or new variants that get deployed by whoever at Black Hat, and we get to see those by doing our malware sandboxing. But as far as from an infrastructure standpoint, we also needed to continue evolving as well. One particular year, a partner who had the best intentions made some changes to some configurations on the equipment and had applied some patches, because unfortunately somebody had released an exploit for the equipment that was being used at Black Hat at the time, and they were like, "Oh, we got a quick patch made. We're gonna patch it." They patched it at like midnight. They didn't talk to anybody. They didn't test it afterwards. And we ended up having about a 90-minute outage, which is still the largest outage we've ever had at Black Hat to date. And it was really frustrating for us, but we were like, okay, we need to control when configuration changes take place and things. And so we deployed, identity and access management to make it so that only myself, Bart, or Fink could actually commit changes to the equipment on the network. Because of the nature of Black Hat, clearly we aren't deploying any type of EDR solutions or anything out to the endpoints that are out there, but there are machines or devices that we do control, whether those are Black Hat owned laptops, registration equipment, things like the iPads and stuff there. So we're doing mobile device management, as Bart mentioned earlier. And we collect endpoint data from those devices that we have so that we can look and see, is anybody screwing around on the registration stuff? And then lastly, because of the scale of the show and the way that things happen, one of our goals, or it's like kind of just been our, I guess, an informal goal, but it is a goal nonetheless. Like when people come on the Black Hat Network, rather than it being the most hostile network in the world, we want people to leave Black Hat more secure than when they arrived. And we achieve that by essentially just alerting them to the fact that they might have an issue on their device, right? So there are people who come to Black Hat, they plug into the network, and they immediately start beaconing out to some known command and control server, right? And we're like, oh, well, that's not great, right? So we can see that, right? Because we see that traffic going out to those C2 servers, and we can say, that looks bad. It doesn't look like they're doing a lab. From the moment they plugged in, we can see beaconing or communication. We should let them know. And in the past, when the show was smaller, we would just walk down to that classroom or wherever that person was within the network and say, like, hey, who has IP address, whatever, can we talk to you for a second? We'd let them know. But due to the nature, the scale of the show, we can't do that. We don't have the resources we'd just be running all the time. And so we've set up automation in place so that when we see command and control traffic, what looks like crypto mining or clear text credentials that go across the network, we will gather information about that using a security orchestration, automation, and response, or SOAR solution, to pull information together about that incident. We look at it, say, is that something that actually looks like it's bad? Yes, it does. And then we send out essentially a captive portal to that individual's device that tells them, hey, we detected this type of behavior on this device. If it's expected behavior, disregard this notice. But if it's not, stop by the knock and we'll discuss it with you. And that allows them to come by and just say, like, hey, what did you see? And we can say, oh, here's the traffic. Look, this is bad. Da, 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 da. And we walk people through what's going on their devices. So we like to think more people are leaving like secure than are coming and getting owned. But like I said, that's just what we're trying to do. So you can see it has evolved quite a bit from just keep the network up all the way to how do we let people know, at a larger scale that they already have an issue.
And it keeps evolving. We still have lots of stuff on our list that we want to get through. So
sure.
Partners change, our guys change, goals change. It's something that kind of goes on there forever. I know we're getting short on time here, but we've got a couple of quick stories for you, some of our favorites, if you will. So I'll let Grifter run with this one, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So, honestly, this is more just an example of one of my favorite things that happens at a lot of different Black Hat shows, and that is this one particularly is from Asia this year. So Singapore, like Bart said, we just got back 2 weeks ago. And what we saw was that somebody was just on the Black Hat network and they were busy. So they were doing SQL injection. They were doing WordPress attacks. They were doing Log4j exploit attempts. They were enumerating a bunch of different, sites that were out there, doing CRL manipulation, scanning everything, right? They were super, super busy. And we saw this traffic. This was going out to public sites, like out on the internet. And it was a bunch of different types of sites. At one point, it was restaurant chains. And then once we noticed that they started attacking payment providers, we were like, well, maybe we should step in, right? And again, due to the nature of the network and what we how we have things set up, we can pinpoint for the most part, like you're at least in this area, right? They're connected to these access points. If we needed to, we could do triangulation, we can do whatever. And in this case, we just decided, well, we'll send them a message, right? The same way we send other things. So we just sent them this. So this popped up the next time they tried to browse something on the network. And it just says, "Dear Black Hat attendee, doing illegal activities at Black Hat is still illegal. Please discontinue attempting to execute vulnerabilities on live internet-facing websites. This is a violation of the Black Hat Code of Conduct. Love, the knock." And then PS, if it continues, we'll come find you. And the funny thing about "we'll come find you" is we're probably not actually going to go find them, but we did know where they were. Based on where they were, we were like, oh, they're sitting in the hallway, like over here, looking out through the glass at the bay out there. So we knew right where they were, but they got this notification and the attacks stopped immediately. But what I'm saying is, like, this is what happens at Black Hat, right? It's people come to Black Hat, they learn some new things, they learn new attacks, they think, oh, I'll be anonymous because I'm on this network, and who's going to notice some more bad traffic and that kind of thing. And this meme has made it into several of our presentations at Black Hat over the years, but it's a fact. And it's that the number of people learning new attacks at Black Hat and then pointing them at the public internet is too damn high. Just because you're at Black Hat doesn't make you attacking public facing websites and servers, a free for all. But some people seem to think it is. So we always have to be on the lookout for things like that. Sometimes we'll walk into a classroom, if it's still during a training, we'll just open the door and we'll lean in and we'll say, "We can see you, knock it off." And then it'll just
Somebody
stop.
will get it.
Like, yeah, and it'll stop. Or we'll just poke our heads in and say, "Hacking from Black Hat is still illegal." And then we close the door and it stops. And so, I mean, we have fun with it, but yeah, it's a thing.
All right, one more story. We'll get you guys out of here. I know we're pushing your time a little bit, but so this is an interesting one. We do help a little bit with the RSA conference SOC as well. That's much different. There's not a full network built out. We just get a feed, basically a tap feed that we monitor that traffic and visualize it. But I bring that up because there's some things that we've seen there as well. This one specifically was an IoT device. We see a lot of different IoT devices that, for whatever reason, whether it's cameras, that the authentication is encrypted, but then the video feed is unencrypted. There was one year at RSA conference that it happened over Valentine's, and it was one of the first years that dating apps were all a big thing. So we basically saw everybody's Tinder pictures going through. All the pictures were unencrypted. This one is one of my favorites, though. So this was actually a cat feeder for Arbuckle's little buddy named Garfield. So if you look down here on the bottom right, CLI, basically you can see that the pet type was 2, the pet name is cat, variety of Garfield, but his nature is very lazy. So you can see his feeding schedule. We had the API key, the username, password. We could have gave Garfield all the food in the world, but it's an interesting thing that always seems to come up, whether it's like I said, a pet feeder or a security camera. Synology has some terrible stuff that if you don't disable everything, is we see people uploading to their home NAS and all kinds of stuff like that. So trust but verify is a term that's been around forever. Jessica from Cisco, one of our big helps, she says never trust and verify. So either way, verify what you're using, look at it on the wire. Even if you don't think that something's happening, we have a million stories around this. A guy trying to use a VPN that was split tunneled and transmitting all of his sensitive stuff in the clear, argued with us that he was on a VPN. It's just one of those things that you never know, right? If you didn't write it, you have no idea. Just verify before you start doing that kind of stuff on public networks or using it all over on a Starbucks or Black Hat or any other conference, because while we try to make sure that everybody is taken care of and stays away from each other, if you will, on our network, it's certainly not the case at all the networks. So whatever you do, be safe out there, verify what you're doing. And that's all from us today.
Thanks.
Gentlemen, you guys are heroes. That was excellent. I know I learned quite a bit. And not only are you heroes, you send sweet love notes. I love it. Very, very, very cool. We're actually going to be taking a couple of our season 2 athletes out to Black Hat and DEF CON this year, part of the volunteer crew. So we'll bring them by. Hopefully they can shake your hands and check out that fishbowl.
Yeah, please.
Absolutely.
We'd love to meet
Right
you.
on. I really appreciate your time today. Thanks for the wonderful presentation. Your support of the program is very much appreciated. And with that, you guys have Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks so much. Appreciate your time.
That's the program.
Right on. All right, folks, we are landing here shortly. We have one more closing keynote, one that I've been very much looking forward to. And today we have the Deputy Chief Learning Officer from the Department of Homeland Security, Chief Information Security Officer, Antonio T. Skurlock, with us to close things out. T and I were fortunate enough to share a summer vacation last year. We were both in Athens, Greece for the inaugural ICC. So we shared some meals, had some drinks, watched the fun. And it's my pleasure to welcome T to the show this afternoon. T, whenever you're ready, love to see that handsome face.
Brad,
there it is. Look at the beard. I'm loving it.
got to maintain the look. First of all, everything that Brad said, I'm going to claim plausible deniability. I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, you're right. It didn't happen.
It was business. No. So look, I'm excited to be here, bro. And you're looking good. This dude is working for you. Go on with it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. T, thanks for joining us today. You're going to close us out strong. I know it. It's my pleasure to hand the floor over to you. So I'm going to fade into the background here. I'll be ready whenever you're ready to wrap up. We'll close things out together and take it away, my friend. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Brad. So look, it's been entertaining and exciting. Wow, what a thing to watch. I will try and do this. I will try and be comical, be brilliant, be brief, and absolutely be gone. I am not going to take up too much of folks' time. I am totally geeking and nerding out right now. What I see in this gathering of literally brilliant minds from every aspect, walk, and age of life is fascinating to me. I could not think of a situation where the true diversity and inclusion of mindset and age and skill set and talent is showcased in the US Cyber Games piece. I love the partnership and I hope it continues on infinitum. That being said, I'm a Deputy Chief Learning Officer at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Everything in my blood is about training, education, and developing people to be not just the best that they can be, but to be as authentic as they can be, to have a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, a sense of not only camaraderie, but true friendship and true fellowship with regard to those who think like us, act like us, and enjoy everything cyber like us. So, it's interesting. Folks are like, wow, man, you only got 5, 6, 10 minutes. That doesn't seem like a lot of time. Well, for those of us in this environment, that is an inordinate amount of time. Every minute of every day, 690 million videos, songs are streamed. Correct me on those numbers, and I'm willing to be corrected. Tweets, texts, the connectivity, the ubiquitousness of the availability of you, me, and others to be able to engage, talk, challenge each other from across the globe is absolutely fantastic. So the brilliance of the US Cyber Games and the fantastic members that will ultimately be on the US Cyber team, I just want to get in. So let me know where I need to plug in so I can play, so I can engage, so we can hunt, defend, search, pick your word for destroy. But the bottom line is, let's have fun. Let's bring our passion for technology. Let's bring our passion for innovation. Let's bring our passion for cyber, for trons, for every aspect of any kind of connectivity. Let's bring that to the forefront. And the Cyber Games does that. My agency operates in an environment that actually is equally exciting. Look, we understand that just being passionate about cyber is not enough. There's a relentless curiosity, a desire to live a lifetime of learning. And oh, by the way, understand what it means to be a person and to be engaged with people in this unique, dynamic environment. You're going to probably see my face, hear my voice, and absolutely the CISA logo throughout this competition, throughout this season, just like you did last season, the ongoing season and the previous season before that. Excited about the upcoming IC3, excited about everything that brings all of these brilliant minds together. People who talked about, I was thinking about this pre-teen. I've been wanting to do this since I understood how to touch a keyboard. The growth and expansion of the industry and the engagement, phenomenal. I mean, I can't talk enough about it. And at the center of that is also vigilance. And what we really want to do is think about, as we expand, as we connect, as we engage, how do we protect? How do we defend? How do we make sure the environment in and of itself will always be there, accessible for us all? That it's an environment that we can learn, grow, play together in the global common. I mean, this is on the back of everybody's mind. The skill sets and talents that we all bring to bear are about keeping this for us all, accessing this for us all, being excited about this together. So, without further ado, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to let you guys know that you couldn't find a better place to engage, a better opportunity to learn, a better opportunity to teach, to mentor, to grow. And by the way, we're hiring. All right, man, that's my wrap.
T, you're a gem. You're a gem. And DHS CISA is hiring. I know that firsthand. One of our season 2 assistant coaches, Mr. Tim King, has been actively involved with the program. So, between Tim, T, the rest of the team over at DHS CISA, you've been phenomenal from day one, really kind of believing in the vision of the program, supporting our efforts, supporting our athletes, helping us connect the dots, establishing relationships across the globe with young cyber professionals in the greater cyber community. So thank you very much for your time today, for your words of inspiration. I know we'll see you in San Diego in a couple of months.
Roger that.
Yes, sir. Right on. So with that, folks, we have a couple of closing announcements. T, you are free to go. The bell has rung. Thank you, sir. We have a couple of closing announcements, but without further ado, today would not have been possible without the wonderful sponsors that have supported the US program, the US Cyber Games program over the past couple of seasons, and those that have returned to support our season 3 campaign. So we have a short commercial that we would like to show you to thank those sponsors, and we will get that rolling. And then you're going to see my face one more time before I let you go. Alrighty, folks, I am back, as I mentioned, and I would be remiss if I didn't share that while we created that commercial just earlier this week, today has been a big day for the US Cyber Games program, not just because we got to launch our season 3 with all of you, but we also brought on another season 3 sponsor in Dark Wolf. So thank you to the team over at Dark Wolf for jumping on board and supporting our mission. A couple of closing notes I wanted to leave you. So today launches season 3. And that means tomorrow we open the CTF. So for those of you that have been listening in, you like what you hear, you're motivated, all of that talk of just try it out, problem solving, networking. Our beginners game room kicks off tomorrow at noon Eastern time. If you haven't done so already, get yourself registered. We would love to see you there. The beginners game room, as I mentioned, tomorrow, noon Eastern time, you'll be sent some information on how to get registered on our CTFD environment to participate in that. You can expect challenges across cryptography, forensics, phone, reverse engineering, and web. And a cool piece about the Beginners Game Room Challenges this year, actually a parallel program of the US Cyber Games is the Pipeline program. And our Season 2 Pipeline program athletes were responsible for developing our Season 3 Beginner Game Room Challenges. So get in there, try your hand, solve a few, join us in Discord, and then on Monday, June 5th, the competitive CTF will open. It'll be in the same environment. You won't need a separate set of login credentials. You'll log in, you'll see that those have been unlocked for you, and then we'll be off to the races. Season 3 has officially begun at that point, and both the beginners game room and the competitive CTF will remain open. You'll have access to that 24 hours a day until June 12th. So get in there, try your hands. You'll see the leaderboards. It's going to be tons of fun. And the last comment that I wanted to make before we share some news with you is the US Cyber Games program has introduced a brand new component as part of our US Cyber Open experience. And this was based off of some feedback we got from our athletes, from our coaches, from our fans over the last several seasons. And that's called Cyber Rush Week. And Cyber Rush Week will kick off on Monday. So all of you that have registered for today's kickoff events, or those of you that are registered for the Beginners Game Room or CTF, competitive CTF, will receive more information about Cyber Rush Week. There will also be events posted in Discord for you to join. And it's nightly events all next week. So that was really, as I mentioned, it's based off some feedback. You know, everyone loves to compete. Everyone loves to get their fingers on the keyboard, see those first blood notifications rolling in. But we've heard you. We know that you would like to connect more with the community, with the program, get to know the fellow competitors. You might even see a coach or two popping into Discord and participating. But Cyber Rush Week kicks off on Monday. So Monday we will have Dr. Shelby Grossman from Stanford's Internet Observatory joining us for a talk on OSINT gathering strategies, specifically around how some of the large language models and developments in AI have impacted a lot of the work she does or observes as it relates to dis and misinformation campaigns on social media. Tuesday, we will have a panel featuring lots of different cybersecurity competitions, everyone from Cyber Skylines, National Cyber League, to the President's Cup hosted by CISA. We'll have Meta CTF, we'll have Hack the Box. I believe we'll have Pico as well represented, talking about their programs, how you can get involved. You know, we're big believers that a rising tide lifts all ships. So the more you can get out there, get your fingers on the keyboard, get involved, get engaged, develop those skills, the better. Wednesday is one not to be missed. We will be featuring Cyber SN. They are hosting a resume writing and interviewing tips workshop full of breakout rooms for folks at various stages of their careers. We'll have a room likely for those interested in certifications or wanting to know more about work roles, etc. So that's on Wednesday. And then Thursday, we are featuring one of the US Cyber Games mega fans, Katie Paxton Fear, will be joining us for a talk on bug bounties and transferable skills between cybersecurity competitions and games, and how you might be able to flip those skills into earning some cash through various bug bounty programs. So Cyber Rush Week, we're excited about. It's the first time we've hosted it. We would love to see you there. Again, you'll receive more information via email, and then also it might just be easier to find events posted in Discord. Two last notes. Number one, we are announcing our season 2 student ambassador program winner. So our athlete ambassador, I should say. Austin King, congratulations, my friends. Thank you for all of your hard work. Our ambassador program was designed to encourage our athletes, both from the pipeline program and the US Cyber team, to help us spread the word, tell their friends, get folks registered and engaged with the US Cyber Games. Austin did that in a big way. He certainly socialized our season 3 launch in the CTF. So thank you, Austin, for helping us get the word out, get more folks in cyber, and we'll have a couple of other prizes to announce next week as we start to get into the US Cyber Open. And last but not least, you've probably heard the US is hosting the International Cybersecurity Championship and Conference this summer. This is the second ever international event. This is what the US Cyber team has been training for all year. So we're thrilled to be in San Diego in early August for that competition. I believe we have a little commercial lined up ready for that. August 1st through 4th, the US team will be battling out against regional teams representing, I think, 86 or 87 countries. So cheer us on. We're going to play a little commercial for you so you can learn a little bit more about it. And we hope to see you in San Diego if you can make it. If not, the whole thing's going to be live streamed. You'll have to catch us there. Alrighty, folks, that is a wrap on today. Thank you so much for your time, for your attention, for your support. If you haven't already, sign up for the CTF. We would love to see you next week battling it out. If you're new, if you're a beginner, if you've done this a million times, come join us for all of the festivities. And one last thank you to our partners and sponsors for all of your support of the program. We couldn't do it without you. With that, let's wrap this thing up. Happy Pride Month to everybody. Let's get this thing. Season 3 is underway. Go Team USA.